Ebelstein had tight rooftops and twisting alleys. Deep in its slums, a shabby old man resided whom everyone knew as the boastful old man. He could only cast one-star magic. Still, he walked the streets like he was superior, raising a hand to show a crude blue light and loudly claiming he was an archmage. He had a famously bad temper. Kids just needed to pull a harmless prank, and he would explode in anger, yelling and raging the second his patience broke. Despite this, Derek learned magic from that old man. No grand destiny was involved. The old man desired a follower to hear him, and Derek sought knowledge. Night after night under dark trees and by a small fire, the old man would sit opposite him, raising a finger while lecturing and drilling lessons into his mind. Flames crackled between them as time quietly went by, seasons shifting one by one. Bare branches and cold winds eventually yielded to fresh green leaves during warmer days, and observation slowly became practice. In a clearing, Derek knelt, focusing on steadying his breath. He pressed his hands to the ground as a faint blue aura collected around his body. Sweat ran down his face as the flow within him finally started moving as the old man had explained. The old man stared, disbelieving. The old man's eyes widened. He mentioned Derek had understood Mana's flow, then stopped, seemingly confused by the sight. The pressure intensified. Derek's sight became clearer. His red eyes mirrored the swirling blue energy. Mana felt like it was screaming, barely contained. He shaped it, sending it out. Power erupted from his hands in a fierce arc, forming a bright blue strike that tore through the air. The light hit a nearby spot hard, sparking and dusting as it cut deep with immense power. The old man behind him froze, completely shocked by the display. So, as he did countless tasks for the old man and put up with his constant requests, Derek kept training. He became a one-star mage in just 1 year. Each night, the old man would drink and talk like the world had already set everyone's boundaries. He'd mentioned that past Ebelstein's northern walls, noble kids hit 3-star levels before their coming-of-age rites. He claimed a low-born person like Derek, having common blood, might train forever and never achieve that level. He cautioned Derek against arrogance, stating Derek's meager talent would stop at 2-star, making him quit. The old man constantly lectured about bloodlines. He'd say magic came from blood, arguing effort was useless against it. Derek just listened, eating plain bread, as the same talk kept going, creating an unseen barrier between nobles and commoners. Derek sometimes questioned if the old man's words stemmed from his own unfulfilled ambitions. That particular night seemed endless. The old man dozed off by the fading fire. Derek stayed awake behind him, watching the darkness as embers slowly died out. Heavy rain fell in sheets, drumming on everything. The world grew cold and gray. Returning the next day, he found the old man dead. His body lay sprawled in the rain, covered with bruises from a severe beating. Derek stood above him, water soaking his hair and sleeves. He initially thought the old man had fought someone and gotten beaten. He later discovered the truth. Guards had beaten him after finding him attempting to steal a 2-star magic book from a warehouse. Derek couldn't stop asking why an old man, always talking about limits and bloodlines, would act that way. Nobody had an explanation. The old man, so full of boasts, had always ingrained the concept of bloodlines into Derek, making it feel like it was etched into his very being. But Derek could never possess noble blood. He wasn't even from this world. A blue window popped up, indicating Derek had mastered basic magic. He needed to pick a primary magic school, with a warning that choice is permanent. So, 4 years went by. Derek met Katja Flameheart. She was once the Viscount Flameheart family's mistress, born noble and a 3-star mage. Many mercenary groups wanted her. While she stayed in Ebelstein, she took a job with the Beldern Mercenary Company. She also taught Derek, who had joined as a new member, only using 1-star magic. Derek learned much from Katja, things only a 3-star mage could teach. At Beldern's Tears Tavern, she mentioned mages naturally want to advance, and she noted Derek possessed that talent. She then cautioned him that too much greed just slows progress. Derek responded he would remember her advice. Katja instructed him to shut his eyes and sense mana. She said he should calmly detect mana's origin, grasp its flow, then visualize what he wished to manifest. Derek sat motionless as a faint blue aura appeared around him. Sweat beaded on his face while he focused. Watching him intently, Katja stated he clearly held a significant amount of innate mana. She added his mana control was unusually stable, perhaps from his combat experience. A sudden energy surge overwhelmed Derek's senses. His eyes snapped open from the intensity. Katja's face tightened. She reacts to the sudden change. A loud noise blasts through the tavern. It rattles the room. Mercenaries leap up, yelling. They demand to know what happened. Someone shouts, "It's possibly an attack," telling others to check outside. Derek watches his hands. Light vapor swirls around them. He then looks up fast. He calls for his master. Katya grabs Derek's wrist. She tells him to be quiet and just follow. Armed people outside the tavern tense up. One mutters they heard an explosion, then warns everyone to look closely because it was clearly an explosion. Katya guides Derek down the tight alleyway towards the orange glow ahead. Derek calls for his master nervously. Katya turns back looking stern. She tells Derek to pay close attention to her words. Derek replies he gets it. Katya explained nobles were very protective of their status. She stated magic was the ultimate privilege. She added that innate power was seen as a blessing, but only for nobles. She said commoners rarely reached the 3-star level, and when they did, it usually meant they dedicated their entire lives to magic. Katya then pointed out what Derek had just used, stating it was a 2-star illusion spell called Auditory Hallucination. Derek stood still, sweat beading as he processed her words. A notification flashed, unlocking Derek's vision access to 2-star magic. He acquired the 2-star magic Auditory Hallucination. Derek remembered that specific moment at age 14 made him a 2-star mage. Afterward, Katya kept taking him along, teaching him various spells. Sometimes she also shared stories about the high society she once navigated during her noble past. A year passed like this, until Keisha finally had to depart. Count Elvester hired Katya to run private lessons. These guys answered to Margrave Elvester, a guy so intimidating the Grand Duke actually feared him, which meant turning them down was basically impossible. Snagging a magic teaching spot at an elite house like that was a massive deal. Katya handed Derek a 2-star spell tome just before leaving. A floating system prompt pops up showing his new spell registry. The log lists combat magic featuring Mana Arrow Full Power plus Manifestation Fireball, conversion magic covering light creation, illusion magic packing sound barrier alongside auditory hallucination, summoning magic granting guide fairy, plus detection magic bringing direction sense. Derek chills by himself holding the manual, looking down while he grinds through the pages and hardwires the knowledge into his muscles. A year went by. Derek mastered 2 more 2-star spells. He was only 16. He decided he wouldn't stop there. Over at Beldern's Tears Tavern, a big guy leaned across the counter. He told Derek they finally had a real job after a slow period. Derek asked about the work. The man grinned. He said the request came directly from the Grand Duke Duplan family. He then asked if Derek understood its significance. Derek repeated the name, surprised, wondering why that family would contact them. The man snapped that this detail was crucial. He yelled that it was Duplan, a family known for spending money freely. He explained that if they built a connection from this job, it could lead to future opportunities. Derek pushed for more details, asking what the request actually entailed. The man said it was simple, just hunting some monsters near the Grand Duchy's edge. Derek questioned if that was truly everything. The man insisted it was, stating noble lords don't lie about these things. Derek frowned, rubbed his chin, and sighed. Something felt wrong, he thought, wondering why a powerful family like Duplan would use mercenaries for monsters. Derek stood up and refused the job, telling the man to find another person. The man lunged, shouting for him to stop. Derek reiterated his stance, stating the man needed someone else and that he steered clear of suspicious jobs. The man retorted he would handle it solo if that was his attitude, but then he yelled they required a mage, lamenting their scarcity in mercenary groups lately. He then indicated Derek, explaining Derek was the sole suitable candidate, which was why they approached him. Derek looked down, stating he didn't grasp why a mage was essential for just hunting some monsters, and mentioned he preferred not getting involved without good cause. The man barked once more, extending a single gold coin, proclaiming it was an Edel gold coin, then quickly clarified that it wasn't the total sum, just the initial deposit. The coin settled in Derek's hand, and his face grew stern. Shortly after, a group appeared. An older man with a monocle and a well-kept mustache, plus a finely dressed woman beside him, and a hooded woman whose features stayed concealed in darkness. The broad man then gestured toward them, instructing Derek to greet his clients. The mustached man scrutinized Derek, stating this wouldn't work. He scoffed, claiming Derek was a child who hadn't even had his coming-of-age ceremony. He mentioned having high hopes after hearing Derek's distinction in the Dawn War, but then clicked his tongue, grumbling that assigning such a young boy to this task was out of the question. The broad man frantically waved his hands, urgently arguing that Derek was legitimate and asserting he was the most skilled mage he knew. The mustached man turned away, announcing they were departing, and stated this mission couldn't be given to a child. The butler stops at the door. The woman next to him leans in, whispering something. His face hardens as he looks behind him, while the hooded woman stays off to the side. She watches quietly, her face hidden. The hooded woman faces Derek. She asks if he's Derek, then suggests they talk. Next, they head to the Grand Duchy of Duplan. Near the edge of town, a goblin jumps out, screaming. Derek moves ahead without a second thought. His sword flashes once, slicing right through the attack. Blood sprays as the creature's body snaps back, then falls. Another goblin strikes from the rear, but Derek spins and hits again, taking it down before its attack connects. More goblins charge, and blue mana crackles around his body. It lashes out in sharp lines, holding the goblins still. Electric light fills the air. Their limbs stiffen, and they stop moving one by one. Derek looks over his shoulder. He tells the dispatch officer that it's done. The man crosses his arms, stating his understanding. The hooded woman's mouth curved slightly. She mentioned Derek caught them all fast. Back at Beldern's Tears Tavern, a blonde woman suddenly erupted in anger. She yelled Derek had turned into a noble's dog, calling his name while storming forward. She tried climbing a table. The broad man panicked, telling her to descend. He warned customers were present. She snapped that even shabby commoners shouldn't debase themselves serving nobles. She demanded to know the job's pay. She accused Derek of abandoning his pride, stooping to serve a noble. He curtly stated that stooping wasn't part of the request. The blonde woman inquired about his earnings, jesting if it was just a silver coin. The man shook his head. Then he grinned, declaring it was 1 gold coin. Her face lit up. She screamed in disbelief. She immediately begged to stoop for nobles too. The broad man snapped at her to quiet down, yelling again that stooping wasn't part of the request. Later that night, the blonde woman lay sprawled on a table, asleep. Her cheek rested in a drool puddle. The broad man asked about the job's outcome. Derek replied it was nothing special, just catching some goblins. The man noted the initial impression was poor, but the clients seemed wealthy. Derek confirmed it, then stated all 3 had lied. The man questioned his seriousness. Derek clarified a noble family's dispatch officer needed to be young, have stamina and social skills. He sought these qualities but saw none. He also noted the woman, who said she was a scullery maid, had hands too clean for manual work. He started to discuss the supposed apprentice inspector too. His companion interrupted him, calling his name and stating mercenaries shouldn't investigate clients' business. He told them to just finish the task and get their pay, nothing else. Derek confirmed his understanding. He considered Jaden was likely correct. In wilderness, only survival counted. He decided nothing else mattered. The following day, within the Grand Duchy of Duplin, Derek reported the area was clear and goblins wouldn't return for a while. The man with the monocle acknowledged this, calling it good work. Jaden promptly shifted to business, inquiring about the rest of their payment. Once the coins appeared, Jaden's eyes gleamed as he eagerly displayed them. Jaden yelled about the 2 gold coins, amazed by the sum. Derek instructed him to store them and talk normally. The man with the monocle cleared his throat, saying he truly valued Derek's abilities. He then mentioned wanting to give him another task. Jaden blurted out, confused. The man clarified that the Grand Duke's estate was offering 15 idle gold coins for this job. Jaden reacted with shock at the amount, and the man inquired Derek if he would take it. Derek confirmed he would. A carriage departed, bringing them to Duplin Manor inside the Grand Duchy. Jaden gazed at the huge residence, remarking it was impressive. Before going in, the man with the monocle mentioned he should properly introduce himself. Jaden panicked at the abrupt formality, attempting to dismiss it by saying they had already collaborated and should feel at ease. The man revealed his name was Dellin, serving as the chief steward of the Grand Duke's estate. He then apologized for keeping his identity secret, explaining it was due to his job's demands. Jaden gets flustered, realizing the high status of their clients. Then Katerina, the Grand Duke's estate headmaid, steps up and introduces herself. Jaden quickly introduces himself as the Beldern Mercenary Company leader. Derek just watches quietly. He realizes they weren't a dispatch officer and scullery maid, but the chief steward and headmaid. He tells himself he'd expected this, but their actual ranks surprised him. The woman in the hood comes closer, her dress sweeping the stone floor. Derek watches her, starting to connect the dots and realize that if things are like this, she's got to be. Her hood gets pulled back, and her hair spills out as she shows her face. She says she is Eileen Eleanor Duplin. She wants to appoint Derek as a magic tutor for her younger sister, Diella. Eileen Eleanor Duplin, the Duplin family's eldest daughter, looks at Derek while making her request. The Grand Duchy of Duplin's residence stood with pale stone and sharp spires. Servants and guards moved calmly under the open sky. Inside, Reg rushed into an office, urging his father and Valerian to see something. The man at the desk glared, demanding to know what Reg thought he was doing, instructing him to act with dignity. Reg retorted that Diella, not him, needed dignity. He claimed she'd gone too far, even physically harming his hired staff. A maid stood trembling nearby, tears in her eyes. Valerian interrupted, telling Reg to quiet down since they were mid-conversation. Reg wouldn't back off. He mentioned over 10 servants quit last month, stating she smashes things on impulse. He asked how long his father would ignore it. Valerian lost his patience, sharply calling Reg's name. Raig then spoke calmly, stating that even if Diela was useless, they still had Eislein. He then declared it was time to dismiss Diela. His father instantly rejected the idea, saying Raig couldn't make that call. Raig pushed on, mentioning he'd had the steward research a monastery. He noted its good facilities and that noble children attended. He argued Diela should devote herself to God's will instead of living as a burden, adding that if keeping her caused family trouble, then that option was better. His father instantly grabs him, pushing him down under immense pressure. He states he thought he already made it clear Raig couldn't decide this. He then repeated Raig's name as a final warning. Raig remained stiff in his grip. He then stated that when a decision was needed, his father had to be the one making it. Later, Derek and Eileen walked through the halls. Eileen asked if he knew about her younger sister Diela. Derek replied he'd seen Lady Diela listed in the Duplin family registry. Eileen confirmed this, adding Diela likely wasn't well known publicly. A door opened with a loud thud, and Valerian and Raig emerged. Eileen stammered Valerian's name. Valerian appeared, greeting Eileen and noting it had been a while. He then inquired about her time in Ebelstein. Eileen replied that his care allowed her to live comfortably. Valerian's gaze shifts, spotting Raig's injury. He suggests they talk later. Eileen mentioned she had something to say. Derek observed quietly. His stare intensifies as he connects the dots. Valerian positions himself next to Raig, applying a cloth to Raig's forehead, seemingly to soothe him or dry his brow, and both men look ahead, their expressions controlled. Derek observes from the periphery, his red eyes tightening as he senses the room's unease. A maid nearby, bent and trembling, hides her face in her hands, weeping. Inside the Grand Duke's office, he maintains a calm demeanor, stating his relief that she's thrived in Ebelstein. She attributes her success entirely to her father. Smiling softly, she presents Derek as the magic instructor she brought from Ebelstein, adding that he offered to oversee Diela's training. The Grand Duke observes Derek, then states his comprehension. Eileen stands, mentioning that her father appears occupied, so they'll depart. She turns to exit, Derek trailing slightly, but the Grand Duke calls out, instructing Derek to remain. Derek halts at the doorway, looking back with a cautious face, then says nothing. The Grand Duke stayed focused on his desk, his pen moving across the paper. Then he looked up and mentioned Derek seemed quite young, confirming his age was 16. Derek affirmed this. The Grand Duke asked if Derek could use magic somewhat. Derek replied he could manage a bit of one-star magic. The Grand Duke quietly chuckled, saying Derek had no reason to lie. He added that humility isn't always seen as a virtue. Derek kept his expression neutral, but he realized the Grand Duke's name held power, and humility wouldn't work on a 5-star mage. Derek apologized if he'd seemed disrespectful. The Grand Duke said it was fine, adding he understood why Derek acted that way, warning that too much talent could consume a person. He then remarked that Derek's age and clothes didn't suit a magic tutor. Derek responded that he was a mercenary. The Grand Duke said that since Eileen chose Derek, he wouldn't question it further. He granted Derek access to the residence's annex where Diela lived. He ordered a maid to guide him, then told Derek he could go. Derek paused, asking for one request. The Grand Duke told him to proceed. Derek explained he's a mercenary, and fulfilling a commission is his duty. He clearly stated Lady Eislein hired him for Lady Diela to learn magic and join high society as a proper noble. The Grand Duke replied that Derek was just stating the obvious. Derek said he was doing it because he had a serious request. The Grand Duke's expression shifted with quiet curiosity. Elsewhere in the residence, a plate got thrown, then crashed and shattered against the wall, fragments scattering across the room. A maid recoiled, screaming, then collapsed into a trembling bow. She apologized sincerely to Miss Diela. Diela stood over her, eyes cold, saying the maid was foolish for thinking an apology would change anything, considering her status. She ordered the maid out of a cup, and saucer sat untouched in the waiting room, on the table. As Jaden suddenly asked why Derek got picked, he argued that Duplin should have had many magic tutors available, and a commoner would struggle teaching a noble. Iceland looked down, explaining she'd tried nearly every famous magic master on the continent. They all quit eventually, so she chose someone with magic who was also in dire straits. She pointed out Derek, despite being a mercenary, understood noble conduct and culture. Jaden responded that Derek's master was a once successful fallen noble, so Derek likely learned much from him. Iceland smiled, adding she believed Derek was refined and kind, even as a mercenary. She hoped he could gently guide Diela and help her adjust. Jaden chuckled, telling Lady Iceland she needed to improve her judgment of people. Iceland blinked, asking for clarification. Jaden clarified that Derek was a mage raised on the streets, working as a mercenary before adulthood. He then questioned if Eislein truly thought kindness alone helped someone from the streets survive. Eilein's face hardened, but she remained quiet. Afterward, Diela and the maid walked Derek down the hall. Derek moved forward, looking calm, eyes downcast. He paused at a tall door. He lifted a gloved hand, paused briefly, then knocked. He hears nothing, then grabs the handle, opening the door. Derek walks in and greets the person inside, stating his name was Derek and requesting a moment's pardon. A girl was seated by the bright window. She told him to approach. As she turned, her hair caught the light, revealing Diella Catherine Duplin, House Duplin's second daughter. Derek moves closer, his cloak dragging. Diella's mouth curved as he neared. Suddenly, a splash burst out. Cold water flew through the air, hitting Derek's face and chest, drenching his hair and cloak. He froze from the impact, water trickling down his jaw as he breathed out silently. Diella put a hand to her mouth, calling it horrible. She faked surprise, saying she'd mistaken him for a sewer rat. She inquired if Derek was the mercenary the Grand Steward spoke of. Then, tilting her head, she added that on second glance he might actually be a sewer rat. She put her foot on a chair and stepped onto it. She stood over him in her red dress. Another bucket of water went over him. She mentioned preparing it just for him, then asked if it reminded him of his hometown, adding that gutter water suited him better. Water kept dripping from Derek's hair and lashes as he remained still, his eyes down, silent. Diella looked at the empty container, complaining she had no more water. She called it a shame, saying it was disappointing. Derek's eyes finally lifted a bit, and Diella's face changed as she made a small sound. Diella's face twisted when Derek looked up at her. She kicked him down, then snapped that he had no right to look at her. Diella stood over him, her chin high in her red dress. She pulled off her shoe, muttering in disgust that he smelled bad, then covered her nose, watching the water drip from him. She tossed her shoe at him, then positioned herself before him, telling him to remember his place. She called him a sewer rat. She then mocked the thought of him instructing her, stating his street upbringing clearly lacked common sense. Meanwhile, the Grand Duke's office was packed with books and documents, with sunlight spreading over his desk. The Duke remembered their prior meeting. Derek stood before the Grand Duke, explaining his presence meant Lady Diella's issue wasn't simple. He then stated he wished to ask the person who loved Lady Diella most how much power he'd give him for instructing Lady Diella. The Grand Duke heard him silently, his stare hardening when the request finished. Back in Diella's room, a sudden impact filled the air. Diella's head snapped back, her cheek reddening as shock entered her eyes. She fell to the floor, dazed, one hand moving to where she'd been hit. Derek stood over her in a chilling shadow, his heavy cloak draped, his red eyes unblinking. He looked down, ordering her to rise. This happened 3 years back. A wagon moved along a country road, and Derek was with his teacher. Derek asked his teacher what her approach would be for a stubborn student who didn't value kindness. After a moment's thought, she replied she'd try to understand, embrace, and accept them. Derek questioned if that wasn't too idealistic. He then asked about a student she couldn't even reach that way. She stated teaching's core purpose was guiding students toward a better path. If understanding and acceptance failed, she said, a different starting point was necessary. Derek then asked what that different starting point was. His teacher's reply was to instill fear in them. Back inside, Diella's eyes widened when Derek moved. A sharp sound of impact filled the air, and Diella's cheek reddened as she fell to the floor. She was stunned, holding her face. Derek stood over her, telling her she'd treat others with respect and consideration. He warned her not to make him repeat himself, then ordered her to rise. Diella pushed herself up, trembling with rage, and swung at him. Her punch landed hard on his cheek. She trembled, screaming about how he dared, and she began yelling that he'd put a hand on her, only to get slapped again. Derek stared down at her. He told her he wouldn't repeat himself. He emphasized she'd treat everyone with respect and consideration. Diella's mouth curved into a skeptical smile, and she made a small, puzzled noise. She then spun around, yelling for the Grand Steward. She claimed this lowborn had dared to touch a young lady. The chief steward hurried inside, maids right behind him. He asked if Lady Diella was okay. Then he glared at Derek, demanding to know his intentions. He yelled that Derek had touched the young lady and warned about the Grand Duke's reaction. Derek calmly held up a sealed paper, explaining his grace gave him complete authority for Miss Diella's schooling. He mentioned his grace allowed him to use any method he wanted. The chief steward stuttered while reading. Diella then stared at the document, stunned. Evening arrived at Duplin residence. Raig seized Valerian's arm in the hallway, begging him to relax. But Valerian charged ahead, yelling that Derek was the mercenary. Derek waited silently inside, his gaze barely lifting. Valerian lunged furiously, shouting that Derek dared strike Diella, while Raig held him tighter, pleading for him to calm down and talk. Derek turned his head, stating his grace had allowed it. Raig pushed Valerian back, explaining Derek was Aisline's guest, and warned that Valerian's behavior would damage Aisline's standing. Raig added their father had also permitted it. Valerian's jaw tightened. He suppressed his anger. Valerian pointed at Derek, ordering him to follow, then snapped at Reg to stay out of it and mind his own business. Reg walked with Derek, saying he'd heard what occurred, and mentioned Diella needed to regain her composure. He reassured Derek not to fret, saying Valerian wouldn't overdo it. Derek glanced back over his shoulder while walking, his red eyes steady and inscrutable. Valerian continued down the corridor ahead, and Reg watched them depart from behind. Reg mumbled he didn't understand Valerian's protection of that hopeless person. In a dimly lit space, small dolls sat stiffly on the floor. Valerian stopped at a closed door, telling Derek to enter. Inside, he explained this was Diella's room from her main house stay, and it had remained untouched since then. Derek entered the cold, quiet room, observing the canvases and scattered paint traces. Valerian mentioned Diella loved to draw. He recalled her asking him to see her artwork. Her face would flush, and she seemed so sweet. He added she never completed any drawing, often leaving blank spaces, only sketching her favorite sections. Valerian then paused, expressing regret for his earlier emotional outburst and apologizing. Derek replied there was no need for concern. He then eyed the incomplete artwork, asking Valerian why he'd led him here. Valerian explained he aimed to prove Diella wasn't a child deserving of scorn or punishment, but she eventually became overly obsessed with bloodline. He said she was ultimately expelled from the main house and confined to the annex. He couldn't even imagine what changed her. Valerian insisted they must prevent her transfer to the monastery. He believed if she mastered even one-star magic, he could convince their father. He desperately clutched Derek's shoulders, pleading for Diella's rescue. Derek paused, holding his breath, and told him to hold on. He opened a book, noting she hadn't entirely abandoned magic, given the numerous marginal notes. Derek gestured to the piles, asking if those were all School of Regulations theory books. Valerian confirmed it, stating that was correct. Since nobles studied at the School of Regulations, the book closed slowly in Derek's hands, his eyes narrowing as he thought. He then decided he would try it. Darkness fell on the annex. Diella was asleep in her bed. Her hair lay across the pillow, her breath coming slow and deep. A bucket in hand, Derek stood above her and tipped it instantly. The cold water poured down. Diella jolted awake, screaming. She thrashed under the soaked sheets. Derek looked down, asking if she was really sleeping. Diella gasped, blinking through the shock. She choked out a question about what was happening, then asked if he was crazy. Derek took hold of her, stating she needed to come with him briefly, as they had a destination. Diella struggled against his hold, yelling for him to release her. She insisted he had no right to touch her and questioned his sanity. Diella cried out that it hurt, ordering Derek to release her and refusing to go. Maids in the hallway watched her yell at Derek to stop, calling him a lowborn and asking what he thought he was doing. Outside, beneath the cold moonlight, Derek continued without pause, dragging Diella while her nightgown trailed through the grass. She tripped, and he pulled her forward once more, forcing her down hard. Diella cried out when she hit the ground. She glared up, tears and anger in her eyes, wanting to know what he expected to change. She told him to stop dreaming, and asked who he was to instruct her. Derek interrupted, asking if she wouldn't even listen. He mentioned having an interesting fact. Diella froze, looking confused and uncertain. Derek stated he truly didn't plan to teach her magic. He added that he just enjoyed roughing up arrogant nobles. Diella flinched, asking him to repeat himself. Derek questioned if she disagreed, stating commoners had no reason to favor nobles. He explained the tutor situation was merely a pretext, a reason to assault haughty, powerful nobles such as herself. His hand gripped the hilt on his belt, and the blade moved, suggesting he might draw it. He asked if she understood the beauty in the screams of those supposedly noble individuals. Diella gasped, asking if he expected safety after such actions. Derek replied he'd be safe, since she was headed for a monastery regardless. He questioned who would believe her story. He then stated in a cold tone that if a major incident occurred, he could simply offer his life as an apology, adding that a commoner's life held that much value. He mentioned he could also flee, and they'd quickly forget him. He claimed he'd be helping Duplin by eliminating its problem after all. Diella's face lost all color as she realized her life was in danger. She takes off. Her dress flies as she sprints over the dark grass, and she thinks getting caught means death. She thinks running through the open grassland to the residence would mean instant capture. She must lose him within the woods. She knows those woods well and can get back to the residence from there. She pushes harder, eyes wide with panic, thinking that's her only option. Then, a sudden heat appears behind her. Diella stops short, startled by a burning glow. Her eyes widen as a fiery sphere swirls into view. She stares, recognizing it as a fireball. Panic hits when she recalls that's 2-star magic. She wonders how that guy can use 2-star magic. The fiery orb descends like a plummeting sun, roaring toward the ground near her. The blast sends light and heat across the forest's edge. Diella screams when flames erupt next to her. The fireball detonates, her arms flailing as heat washes over her. She writhes on the dirt, her eyes wide and trembling, and then Derek appears in the smoke, a slight smile on his face. He mentioned he thought he missed. Diela quickly gets up and bolts. Her feet hit the damp grass hard as she clenches her jaw, pushing ahead. She trips badly, falling onto her hands, moaning when her knees strike the dirt. Then a bright blue streak hits the ground close by with a loud crack. Diela snaps her head up, breathing heavily. A second blue blast strikes the earth near enough to kick up soil, and Derek's voice echoes in the darkness. He commented she's quite fast, then added, "It's tough to think that pace comes from someone cooped up in the annex all day." Diela looks behind her with shaking rage. She then sprints back onto the forest trail. While running, her mind raced. She questioned how much longer she'd run, or if escape was possible. She knew he'd definitely catch her at this speed. Derek, behind her, knelt and placed a glowing palm on the ground. Mana pulsed out like ripples. He looked up at the trees, thinking this was the forest from his paintings. He figured she'd been running here since childhood. He believed she unknowingly sensed the mana in the wild, putting that feeling on canvas, concluding this was definitely it. Diela suddenly spun around screaming, lifted a heavy rock and slammed it down. Derek swiftly pulled out his sword, then sliced the rock. Diela stops cold, her eyes wide from the missed attack. Derek moves ahead, sword down by his side. He stated her spirit was admirable, noting that she knew his pursuit would be tough to deter, so she decided to fight back. That choice couldn't have been simple. Diela panted on all fours, trembling while she attempted to stand. Derek glanced down, mentioning she lacked the strength to even flee now. He lifted the blade, aiming it at her, and asked about any final words. Diela gave a strained, bitter laugh. She claimed he had to be kidding if he expected an apology. She added that unlike lowborns, she wouldn't grovel. She simply told him to end her. Derek dropped his blade a bit, then asked her why she was so fixated on bloodline. Diela's shoulders trembled as she looked away. Then she questioned what remained for her. She said if her great bloodline was removed, what would she possess? She curled up, chanting, "It's magic," repeating it like a desperate plea. Tears streamed down her face. She cried out, asking if he believed she never attempted it. She leaned forward, her nails dug into the dirt. She explained that no matter her effort, it never worked. She added that if she was eliminated from everything, like magic or painting, then falling behind meant losing everything. She then whispered that if even her bloodline disappeared, what would she be? She broke down, the question lingering. Derek observed quietly. Mana ignited on his sword. He raised it high, blue light spreading across the steel. He declared he'd heard enough. He said his farewell. The blade swung, and a blue arc ripped through the air. Moments later, sharp ice burst from the ground near Diela, rising into a crystalline cage. Diela froze. Diela's eyes widened. A cold light surrounded her. She looked at her hands, like they weren't hers. She trembled, murmuring it was magic. Derek lowered his sword, then put a hand to his chest. He told Lady Diela it was good work, and asked her to excuse his rudeness. He mentioned it might not be something she could truly consider magic, if it's just mana, but she still did it, he said. Diela's breath hitched. A choked sound escaped her. The cold bit deeper. Panic flooded her face. She screamed until her voice cracked inside the glittering ice. Later, beneath the moon, Derek sat with Diela in the forest. He said she belonged to the School of the Wild. Diela repeated it, disbelieving, and asked what the School of the Wild was. Derek confirmed that. He noted most nobles learned the School of Regulations. He explained all magic schools were fundamentally alike, but they varied greatly in understanding and mastery. Derek told Diela she belonged to the School of the Wild. He explained that learning magic using School of Regulations theory would definitely cause issues. It wasn't just like wearing ill-fitting clothes, it was like trying to force on clothes that simply wouldn't go on. Diela then looked at him directly, asking how he knew about her being from the School of the Wild. Derek explained he'd seen her drawings. He said she could sense mana moving through nature and transfer it to canvas. Derek mentioned that mages with the School of the Wild temperament typically sensed mana in nature early on. Diela listened, her face rigid, eyes still damp, but now fixed on him. Derek observed her, then said that was enough. She should be able to walk. Diela got her footing, quietly checking her balance, figuring this wasn't bad, considering. Derek turned, stating she'd manifested mana, but had much more to learn. He told her he'd teach her natural mana manifestation starting tomorrow. Diela then called Derek's name, paused, then awkwardly thanked him. Derek didn't respond right away, then suggested they leave. Diela blurted out she'd join him, rushing to catch up. Walking under the moon, he mentioned the sunset painting, asking if she'd done it. Diela replied she didn't know, saying it had been ages since she painted. He commented it was beautiful. Diela's face softened. She confirmed it was hers. adding he was the first to notice its completion. Morning light fills the room. Diela sits up fast in bed, then lifts her hand, attempting to draw mana once more. Her fingertips show a faint swirl, and she whispers, "It's difficult." Meanwhile, outside, a maid walks up carrying a bucket. The door opens, making the maid scream when her bucket jolts, and water splashes onto Diela's pajamas. The maid panics, stammering apologies, saying she was sorry. Diela just stands, glaring. The maid drops to her knees, pleading for forgiveness. Diela instructed the maid to mind her path. The maid froze, bewildered by no penalty, then crawled away in shock. Other maids gathered, asking if she was all right or if she'd been struck. The maid replied she was fine. Lady Diela had just warned her to be careful. Someone mumbled, unable to grasp what occurred after Lady Diela's outing last night, as Diela walked down the hall, not glancing back. Derek slept, his face half buried in the pillow, until loud knocking and a sharp voice repeatedly called his name. He groaned, sat up, rubbed his eye, and asked what was happening. Dylan stood with Diela, cautioning her to mind her manners, stating it was improper. Diela insisted Derek teach her to control the mana she'd manifested. She explained her solo attempts weren't succeeding. Dylan's face contorted in shock. He realized and repeated to himself that she'd manifested mana. Diela asserted Derek promised to teach her today, so he needed to quickly instruct her. Dylan told her to return that afternoon and guided her off. As they departed, Dylan tearfully muttered his relief that Lady Diela had finally succeeded. She clicked her tongue. Diela spun around, irritated, demanding to know his identity for telling her to return later. She pounded the door, yelling for it to open immediately. Diela insisted on immediate instruction. Derek, still tired, lay back down while the noise persisted outdoors. The Duplin residence was bathed in morning light. Its long roofs and high walls gleamed beneath a clear sky. Inside a corridor, maids used brooms and buckets, quietly talking as steps went past. One maid asked if her colleague had heard the gossip, mentioning that folks claimed Lady Diela hadn't broken any plates. The other maid eagerly confirmed, adding that she'd splashed water that morning without getting punished. The first maid then leaned in, adding that rumors also said Lady Diela manifested magic. The other maid gasped, asking if it was Sirius's magic. Abrupt footsteps halted close by. Raig spun around, his expression hardening, and he demanded to know what they had just spoken about. Soon after, the Grand Duke was seated at his desk, his pen active while papers stacked tidily beside him. Raig and Valerian sat opposite him, the atmosphere thick with tension. The Grand Duke calmly reiterated the report, inquiring if Diela had manifested magic. Valerian confirmed it, stating he'd questioned the head butler and servants multiple times. The Grand Duke expressed relief. Raig remained tense. He cautioned against drawing conclusions solely because she displayed magic. Valerian sharply addressed Raig, telling him his sister had manifested magic and deserved his praise. The Grand Duke grew quiet, his eyes inscrutable as he kept writing. Raig brought up all her past actions. He argued that such a minor outcome wasn't enough to prevent her convent assignment. The Dyke remained quiet, his thoughts unreadable. Later, Diela's window let in sunlight, with dust motes floating in the bright air. Diela sat on her bed wearing her red dress, knees tucked close, arms wrapped around them. Derek stood close by, his expression blank, and asked if she was pouting. Diela replied she wasn't pouting, stating she was angry. Derek told her that acting spiteful wouldn't change anything. Diela repeated she wasn't spiteful, insisting again she was angry. Derek said her pouting wouldn't help as nothing could be done, explaining that everything had an order. Diela spun around, her face flushed with rage, yelling she wasn't pouting and had said she was angry. Derek just stared back, saying nothing. Diela ground her teeth, then forced out that fine, they could call it pouting. Derek tilted his head, puzzled by her change. He pulled a chair over and sat down, a book in his hand. He cautioned her against using magic just because it appeared or it might backfire. He mentioned his own past experiences taught him this. He then added that resting was as vital as studying, and since she'd rested plenty, it was time to hit the books. Diela crossed her arms, scoffing that a stuffy magic teacher would naturally say that, then sarcastically declared the stiff lecture had begun. Derek's gaze darkened the room, his red eyes sharpened, and pressure filled the air. He then asked if he should teach her in a less stuffy manner. Diela's eyes showed a flash of last night's fireball, and she flinched intensely. She quickly conceded, huffing that she'd dropped the subject. Derek eased the tension, raising his hand, now calm. He stated they'd practice magic manifestation today. He explained that once she could freely use magic manifestation, she'd quickly learn one-star magic. He mentioned the School of the Wild had no rigid system, making it ideal for self-study, and it pursued much more freedom than the School of Regulations. He then honestly added that she actually suited the School of the Wild quite well. Diela's scowl faltered. She stared at him with a guarded frown, asking what he meant. Derek met Diela's gaze and said it was precisely as it sounded. He explained her free-spirited nature had good compatibility with the school of the wild. He also added that she was born with Duplin blood, so she was overflowing with talent. Diela's eyes widened, and she stammered, asking if she was talented. Derek confirmed this, stating that if she could conjure an ice wall the instant she manifested, then she was definitely overflowing with talent. Diela's face lit up in shock, and she asked if that meant she was some kind of genius. Derek explained talent and genius weren't the same. Diela argued they were, but Derek insisted on the difference. She huffed, then sarcastically called herself amazing, and asked what was next. Outside, Reg overheard their conversation from the garden, and he clicked his tongue, annoyed. The next day, Diela ran to Derek saying she could now manifest magic, but its direction was off. She demanded he look, showing him swirling mana. The day after, she mentioned trying to imbue it with cold, but something felt wrong. Derek sat at the table, spellbooks open, spoon in hand, listening while he read. Another day later, she chased him through the hall again, saying she felt the magic, but the sensation was strange. Derek kept walking, not looking up, still absorbed in his notes. The next day, at sunset near a tree, Diela stormed up again, calling Derek's name and demanding to know what he was doing. She scolded him, reminding him she'd told him to stay near the annex. She asked if her father lent him those spellbooks just for slacking off, and he confirmed his father lent them for that. Diela glared, then grabbed his sleeve, saying she'd succeeded at letting the magic flow out as he instructed, so he should hurry and check it. Later, Valerian stood in a bright room, hands behind his back. The door opened, and Derek inquired if Valerian had summoned him. Valerian instructed him to sit for a discussion, then asked about Diela's recent well-being. Derek reported Diela made significant progress, but mastering one-star magic would probably need more effort. Valerian acknowledged that. He mentioned his mother, currently at a social event, would likely be back next week, and cautioned Derek not to underestimate her. He added that while estate residents were okay, nobles naturally disliked commoners in important roles, and asked if Derek was aware of this. Derek confirmed he'd remember it, then questioned if that was Valerian's reason for summoning him. Valerian hesitated, then stated he was the future head of House Duplin, meaning his role involved embracing and integrating all house members. He explained this required sincerity with everyone, but it was tough since people's hearts are so complex. He wished everyone shared thoughts and values, but that wasn't true. Derek asked Valerian's point. Valerian confessed Diela wouldn't interact with him, Derek. He still clearly recalled how she used to greet him with a smile back when they were kids. He wondered where he'd ever find another angel like her. Valerian then asked Derek if any method existed to gain Diela's favor. Derek questioned why Valerian was asking him. Valerian explained that Diela only ever followed him. Meanwhile, Diela yelled for Derek from outside the estate, demanding his location while searching. Before Derek could depart, Valerian halted him, urging him to see something. He mentioned learning doll making from the maids, then asked Derek's opinion. He showed off a stitched doll resembling Diela, asking proudly if it wasn't her exact likeness, then if Derek sensed his big brother's affection. Derek gave it a cold stare, asking if Valerian intended to curse someone. Valerian flinched, embarrassed, stating Derek was totally unhelpful with this kind of project. Soon after, Derek stood in the manor as servants and attendants assembled. A sophisticated woman approached with a practiced smile, mentioning she'd heard much regarding him and that they'd located a highly skilled magic instructor. She introduced herself as Morella Dabla Duplin. She stated that if it wasn't an issue, she wished to send him a present from her lands. Derek responded that no house claimed his allegiance. Morella questioned his statement. Derek explained he was a commoner. Morella pulled back, her eyes growing wide. She repeated in shock that he was a commoner. A week before this, the Grand Duke's residence received a carriage. Eileen expressed to Derek her happiness about his arrival. She mentioned that as Diela's older sister, she wished to remain with Diela longer. However, Ebelstein required her attention, so she entrusted Diela to him. Derek confirmed his understanding. Jaden then clapped Derek's back firmly. He joked that trusting him with her sister sounded dull. He then told him to finish up fast and return. He warned that Pelline would cause a big scene if she discovered it. He mentioned he relied on Derek. While Derek waited by the carriage, Eileen abruptly put her hand over her mouth. She realized she'd totally forgotten something. Jaden wanted to know what she meant. Eileen explained her mother was due back next week, and she'd neglected to inform Derek. Jaden questioned if Derek needed a warning for that. Aislinn paused, then internally confessed her mother was tough to characterize, like an angry deity. Meanwhile, back in the present, the Grand Duke's office doors swung open, creating a weighty atmosphere. Morella entered forcefully. She immediately questioned why a commoner taught Diela and what the situation was. The Grand Duke calmly stated he heard perfectly well, suggesting she quiet down. Morella retorted that her volume wasn't the issue. She stressed this concerned Diela, their cherished youngest daughter. The Grand Duke, addressing Morella, reminded her he wasn't fond of commoners in such roles. However, all well-born teachers had given up. She questioned how he'd accept someone who'd once been a mercenary. The Grand Duke explained a good magic teacher was hard to find. He also mentioned Eileen had recommended Derek. Morella bristled, arguing a certain standard was still necessary. She pointed out they had her younger brother, Flam, is available. She explained Flam had been occupied previously, but things changed since Diela also manifested magic. So if Flam taught her, the Grand Duke interrupted her. He stated she intended to take the territory manager and make him a personal tutor. He questioned if Eibelstein could function with such disorganized management. Morella retorted, yelling about Eibelstein's social circles. She asked if he believed those circles were also disorganized, then declared that area was a war zone. She emphasized that socially, a tutor's standing was paramount. She fumed that Derek was a commoner, lacking any family name, and questioned if they wished Diela to be ridiculed upon her high society debut. Valerian intervened, gently touching her to soothe her. He suggested Mother take a moment to compose herself. He noted she hadn't arrived solely to argue with Father. Morella pulled back, telling Valerian to move. She stated this issue couldn't be ignored. A voice interrupted, pointing out the core question was if the commoner mage possessed the necessary qualities for Diela's teacher. He then asked his mother if that was correct. Reg stepped forward, maintaining a cool demeanor. He stated a commoner becoming a noble's magic tutor was an unusual circumstance. He then mentioned that if the commoner genuinely possessed the required skills, he didn't foresee a significant issue. He announced his intention to test Derek's abilities, then started suggesting a magic spar to defeat him. The Grand Duke stopped him with one word. Enough. He declared Derek was a genuine mage. Reg became quiet, then shifted focus, asking about Diela's test. He reasoned Derek's teaching must be top-notch, so Diela, having learned from him, should show great results too. He declared he'd personally test Diela to confirm her progress. Leaving the office, Valerian sharply called Reg, asking what he was thinking, suggesting a magic duel. Reg remained firm. He questioned if Valerian really thought Diela had changed, or if he'd forgotten her past actions. Valerian argued that despite everything, she was their soul sister, needing their protection and closeness. Reg scoffed at blood, stating it was the very thing threatening their family's downfall. He warned if she entered high society this way, it would truly ruin them. Valerian stared, asking if Reg's feelings were genuinely that strong. Reg replied Diela had first overstepped boundaries. Reg stated Diela should remain confined to the annex. The following morning, at dawn, a bird flew past the window while Diela burst into Derek's room, yelling his name. Derek glanced up from his open spellbook, asking why she was there so early. Diela then slapped down the spar notice, stating if she lost this magic spar, he'd be fired. Derek confirmed he knew. He mentioned young Master Reg was already a seasoned one-star mage, making victory likely tough. Diela then erupted, asking if that was his only comment, repeating he'd be fired. Derek remained seated, holding the rolled document calmly, and stated he was a mercenary. He explained he performed his hired tasks and accepted the payment for them, and that was it. He added he'd already received ample compensation. Diela's anger then shifted to confusion, and she questioned if he truly meant it. A week passes, and the Duplain banner flies over the estate. Its vast courtyard below fills with staff forming neat rows. The Grand Duke steps out, his wife and a butler behind him, his eyes set forward, like he's judging the day's result before it even starts. Derek waits, his cloak pulled tight. He mentions the Duke's arrival. Derek straightens his cloak's front, completely steady. Observing him, the Grand Duke notes Derek shows no nervousness, and he questions if it implies Derek's confidence. The Grand Duke considers Derek quite bold in such a scenario, deciding they shouldn't underestimate him just yet. Footsteps advance steadily, a cape's edge swinging, and Reg moves forward, his face grim. Reg believes this won't be a mere magic spar, and he vows to utterly crush Diela today. He plans to make her regret the past to her very core. Diela enters, clad in a red hood, her petite. Her movements were controlled yet tense. She remembered the previous week looking up at Derek. She had asked if he truly meant his words, that he didn't care about outcomes as long as payment arrived. Derek replied that she'd likely noticed her magic growth was already progressing well. He mentioned she couldn't immediately use one, star magic, but it wouldn't take much time. He explained the simple reason. She possessed Duplain blood from birth. Diela recoiled at blood and demanded his explanation. Derek then asked if he hadn't informed her previously. Then he introduced the School of the Wild, describing it as a place emphasizing self-study over traditional teaching. Diela suddenly exclaimed, wanting to know why he was speaking like that then. Her voice broke from frustration. Her eyes shook, but she made herself speak regardless. She admitted she wasn't a top student, yet she desired to continue learning magic from him. She stated she didn't want any other teacher. Derek remained quiet briefly, his back partially turned, as wind pulled at his cloak. He then warned her he knew nothing about Noble's magic spars etiquette or rules, admitting he'd never participated. He stated he could still teach her how to win a fight, then asked if winning was her goal. A grim memory surfaced for her. Murmurs spread through the onlookers like smoke. People whispered Lady Diela seemed to lack magic entirely. They sneered that even her renowned teacher had abandoned her. Someone questioned how such a person could originate from Duplin. Another muttered Duplin was past its peak, and that was it. Several voices griped that the small girl only caused problems, and they guessed the Grand Duke had much to worry about. Others mentioned Lady Eislein was at least present. One voice spat that his own child would be his downfall. Someone concluded it was best not to birth such a thing. Diela heard everything regardless. Tears welled in her eyes, but her gaze firmed as she met Derek's. She told him he needed to ensure her victory. Now in the present, Diela moved ahead. She hadn't arrived there as Raig's younger sibling, nor as House Duplin's youngest. She stood solely as Derek's pupil and a mage. The Duplin crest waved above the estate. Lady Diela advanced in a red-hooded cloak, confronting Raig with keen green eyes. The butler cleared his throat, announcing they would use the sparring rules from the Ibelstein Kelbrim Salon's high-rank mages. He added that the first side to activate General Pelham's protective magic circle would lose. Raig firmed his jaw, stating they should start. Derek observes the General Pelham's protective magic circle pendant. He knows this safeguard activates just before major damage, nullifying any opponent's spell. He considers this typical noble combat, squandering costly accessories on a mere spar. He notes its 10-minute duration, but Raig's mood suggests an earlier finish. Raig lifts his hand, chanting. Green mana rings spiral out like slicing wind. Pressure rolls across the terrace. He realizes Diela needs to return to the annex. Diela's cloak whips from the turbulence. She remains calm until the attack reaches her, then she dodges aside and begins running. Raig's eyes harden, watching her evade, and he bristles, thinking she's got nerve. He swings his arm again, sending another crushing surge, but Diela keeps moving, bracing and redirecting with raw, straightforward star magic. Derek observed her technique. He saw her easily use star magic, but she was a total novice in actual combat. He realized she forced trajectories just to land attacks and blocks. He warned himself she'd quickly burn through mana doing that. She planted her feet, then pushed mana forward. An immense ice barrier rose. The green current hit the wall. She darted aside, barely evading the swirling flow as the wind magic pursued her. Raig looked at the ice wall. He saw it as raw power, not a true star-ranked technique. He figured she couldn't block his magic with a mere trick. He decided to break through using sheer firepower. He glared, daring her to block his next attack, as multiple green spell lights swirled and grew like concentrated storms. As pressure mounted, Diela's breathing became ragged, but she recalled Derek's earlier words, how he'd drilled them in. Mercenaries, he'd said, fought differently from nobles. They didn't value fair play, and victory was their sole aim. She remembered his warning. This was no typical noble duel. Even winning might draw criticism, but she could still choose an outcome where she prevailed. She recalled him asking if she was truly okay with that. Diela clenched her trembling hands, raised her chin, and answered yes, without hesitation. Diela stood in her red hood, her blue eyes fixed forward. Mana whips through the air, forming green crescent blades. A storm-like wind pressure approaches. Diela drops low and starts running. Her cloak flares as she evades the cutting flow's edge. The green arc violently hisses, carving into the floor, gouging the boards and sending splinters flying from her previous spot. She keeps moving. She remembers Derek's lesson he drilled into her. She tells herself that some mercenaries win despite strength differences. She reminds herself that these individuals don't duel, they fight. She knows fighting means controlling the battlefield by utilizing the ground and environment, and they'll use anything available to win. She made herself remember to exploit even the briefest moment an opponent lets their guard down. Raig firms his stance and sends out another spell, confident it's all over. The next blast hits with crushing force, fracturing the ice on impact, while a wind slash comes from behind. The attack rips across the terrace, hitting and sending dust and debris flying. Derek observes calmly. Their mother panics, telling Delon to end the spar right away, claiming Dello got hurt. The Grand Duke replies coldly, ordering her to sit, stating it wasn't finished. She protests, arguing Dello was hit, but he interrupts, saying she's mistaken since General Pelham's magic circle didn't activate. The Grand Duke goes quiet, his gaze unwavering. Derek remains below, unmoving, his red eyes fixed on the terrace. The Duke observes him, noting he hadn't blinked, then questions if he anticipated Delo's growth this much. On the terrace, Raig's face hardens. He believes she absolutely should have been hit. He wonders why the magic circle failed, scanning for her with a sharp, uneasy look. As he ponders her location, a sudden crack appears, splitting the floor near his boot. Before he shifts his weight, ice shoots up from below him. The sudden strike knocks him off balance, tearing him from his feet. He grunts from the hit. He hits the ground hard, sliding across the terrace. His body twists as the shock registers on his face. Raig clenches his jaw, cold sweat on his face. He realizes the attack came from under the platform. He glances at the official near the edge. He figures the Kelburn Salen's rules mean leaving the platform counts as a loss. No declaration comes, so he lets out a mental scoff. They're treating being under the platform like it doesn't count as leaving. He tightens his jaw. Nobles likely never thought of such a cheap trick in a noble magic spar. He walks over the fractured boards, then slows at a broken section to peer down. Just then, a sharp ice surge bursts up with a violent roar, making him pull back. Jagged blue spires shoot through the air around him, scattering splinters across the terrace. He lands in a wide stance among the rising shards. His cloaks snap in the wind. His eyes dart across the battlefield. Raig swallows. He can't see her, and hitting her will be tough. He then realizes she only needs one hit on him. He hardens his expression and figures this spar lacks any noble etiquette. He calls for Diella, scanning the floor again. His gaze falls on a gaping hole in the platform. Raig leans in. Diella is below, in the hole. Dust and debris fill the space. Her red hood frames her face, which stays eerily calm. She looks up at him. Her eyes show a steady, controlled intensity, and Raig's breath catches. He recognizes the look. He thinks he's seen that expression before, and he remembers Derek's calm gaze. Derek had it when Raig's older brother grabbed his collar. Raig's expression darkens. He realizes Diella couldn't have planned this by herself. Raig's eyes flick to the stands. Derek sits there, arms crossed, completely unmoved. Rage boils up in Raig. He thinks Derek is scum, and this was Derek's plan. Raig grabs his cloak's clasp. He yanks it free and flings the heavy fabric. It spins through the air, then drops beside the ice spires. He straightens. He lifts his hand, accepting the Twisted Exchange's rules. He says he'll play along. He declares he'll go along with her scheme. The fight keeps going. Raig waits by himself on the ruined stage. He blasted the floor apart trying to hit his rival. Snapped wood dangles everywhere. Dirt floats around. This spot definitely isn't fancy anymore. Up high, the Duchess starts completely freaking out. She complains about Diella hiding in some gross hole beneath the floorboards. She calls the whole move super trashy and unrefined. She sounds super shaky while begging her man to cancel the match right away. The Duke just stays chill. He tells her to pay attention because Diella played totally fair so far. He looks completely relaxed and deep in thought. You can actually read his face while he tracks the mess downstairs. Diella is down in the dark, under the broken floorboards. Faintly glowing ice shards float near her. They cast a cold light on her dirt-smudged face. Her eyes are wide, steady, and intensely focused. Then, in that quiet moment, a shift occurs. She clearly perceives the mana flow for the first time. It moves through the air, like invisible currents now visible. Up top, Raig goes rigid. A sharp jolt hits him. He feels her presence change. Surprise crosses his face. Then, jagged ice pillars suddenly erupt from below. He jumps back just in time. His boots scrape on cracked stone as the spikes rip through his standing spot. He grinds his teeth, realizing she's intentionally messing with his casting when he chants. He won't lose here. Sweat drips down his temple, and his eyes scan the ruined arena. He needs any advantage. Then he sees a tall flagpole at the platform's edge. A crazy idea forms. Below, Diella notices another thing. Raig's mana flow has ceased. She instantly knows he's planning something. She gets ready, poised to strike the instant his next chance starts. On the sidelines, the old butler watches nervously. He whispers the young master's name, worry lines on his face. Raig moves without warning. He launches himself up, scrambling the flagpole with incredible speed. While climbing, he figures she can't mess with his mana flow from this height and distance. But there's a catch. Chanting is impossible from such an unstable spot. Victory has one path for him. He'll commit all his power to one massive strike. This attack would destroy the whole platform, no chant needed. From the top, wind swirling, he lets it loose. A huge magic blast screams down. The stands show. Derek observes the unfolding scene, his face cold and unimpressed. The magic barrage hits the stage. Stone fractures. Wood breaks apart. The pillar below shatters from the immense force. The shockwave moves up. The flagpole can't handle it. The base breaks. The The pole violently snaps, sending Reg airborne, his balance gone. A loud explosion rips through the dueling grounds. Smoke and debris consume the entire stage. The Duchess screams her son's name in terror as the blast takes over the arena. As the dust settles, Reg lands safely, bracing with one hand. He quickly lifts his head, his eye scanning the smoke, looking for her. A figure then emerges from the haze. Diela dashes across the ruined stage. Reg instantly reacts. Mana collects at his fingertips, forming a glowing blue arrow. He lets it go, and the light streak whistles her way. Diela's eyes get wide. Diela quickly turns, extending her hand. Her mana bursts forth, aiming to block the incoming strike, but the effort clearly shows. Surprise crosses her face. This exertion almost takes her down. Reg doesn't hesitate. A new arrow appears at his hand. Diela spots the projectile heading right for her. She knows blocking it is impossible. Rather than pulling back, she switches her approach. She rushes right at him. Reg permits himself a quick, sure smile. He thinks just one arrow hitting means victory. He misjudges her pace. Before Reg can respond, Diela covers the distance, landing a strong kick to his chest. The impact jerks his head to the side. He reels back, stunned. Diela's lip bleeds slightly as she clenches her jaw. Reg falls to a knee, holding his chest and struggling for breath, completely shocked by the sudden hit. As Reg fights to steady himself, Diela puts a hand on the dirt, then grabs a bunch of dirt and sand from the debris. Spotting her opening, she throws it right into his face. This action, completely unexpected in noble duels, sent grit and dust flying onto his face. Reg pulled back, swearing while attempting to clear his eyes of the debris. He couldn't see for some crucial seconds. Diela seized that chance to move to a safer spot. Once his sight returned, he understood. If Diela was using physical attacks and throwing sand, her mana reserves were surely empty. He couldn't grasp her willingness to fight this way. She kept struggling, even with defeat looking certain. As he slowly got to his feet, a realization hit him. For her, this duel wasn't just about victory. It was about showing her value. A fresh determination appeared in his gaze. He chose to respect her resolve. He'd face her not as a powerful mage, but as her brother, giving his absolute all. Sunlight streamed over the wrecked courtyard, making long shadows on the shattered stone. Diela, exhausted, stood opposite him. She held her head. Frustration burned in her eyes. She had hit her breaking point. A blood drop trickled down her chin. Her mind wandered to an old memory. A voice resonated in her head, advising her to view magic like painting with a brush. The memory played out. Mana, the voice clarified, was the paint. The spell served as the brush. You shouldn't force it. You collect the paint spread around and use it to form an image. Beneath a calm, star-filled sky, Derek showed her. Blue mana swirled elegantly as he commanded it. Derek tells her creating something like this is magic. Young Diela gazes up at him. His words reveal a new world to her. That calm night's memory beneath the stars gives her fresh purpose. Now Diela shuts her eyes. A slight smile plays on her lips. She remembers the lesson. Mana's the paint, the spell's the brush. A gentle blue aura starts to form around her. She disregards the strict chanting she had to learn. Instead, her will alone extends outward. The light around her grows brighter. She senses it clearly now. Raw mana in the air reacts, swirls, and collects at her fingertips. Her eyes open. Her stare is keen. She decides she'll create with this paint. With a brilliant flash, mana merges. A flawless, gleaming ice spear appears next to her, held inside an intricate magic circle. She did it. That's magic. The butler stares, disbelieving, jaw slack, a sweat bead trickling down his temple. The Duchess faces her husband, her voice trembling. She states Diela, the daughter they thought was a failure, is using star magic. Reg observes with worry. He whispers her name, concerned she could lose control and cause a terrible accident with that spell. Diela remains firm. Her grip is stable as she focuses the ice spear's massive energy. Reg spots the danger. He instantly collects his mana. Then he rushes ahead. He's sure the result won't differ. Even with a single star magic, he thinks he's still ahead. He plans to hit before she acts. Diela holds her ground. She faces his attack with steady eyes. Reg fires a burst of bright magic arrows. He wants to overpower her before her spear launches. Diela launches her ice spear. Both powers clash mid-air. Spells smash together. A huge bright blast happens, covering the dueling ground in raw, wild energy. The Duchess yells Diela's name, her face white from fear. As the smoke clears, an amazing thing shows up at the blast's center. It's a glowing sphere, pulsing with contained power. It acted as an incredibly strong shield, Reg breathes out, trembling, exhausted from all the energy he used. Opposite him, Diela struggles to breathe. Derek, hurt and bruised, watches intently, his eyes locked on the battle's outcome, observing everything quietly. A year back, baby birds sang from the branches, with birds flying past the manor's glass in the gentle dawn. The Duke, with his beard, showed up alongside his staff. The butler approached, mentioning a letter from House Belmiard had arrived earlier, probably about the recent event. He then inquired about its handling. Looking through the glass, the Duke spotted Diella by herself in the bright room, her gaze fixed, showing no emotion, and he became quiet. The defense barrier had come alive. Derek looked down, and Diella realized he'd been defeated. Diella's calm broke. She grabbed her head, openly crying on the damaged floorboards. Her mom started yelling once more, declaring the duel was crude and disgusting. She condemned the master's disgraceful instruction. The Duke recalled a memory. It was of a young soldier who stepped forward, identifying as Raymond Oswald Duplin. He considered serving the Duke an honor. Someone else observed the soldier's ambitious eyes were like his father's. Raymond responded gratefully. Then the memory faded. The Duke's thoughts returned to the present. He studied Diella, thinking her gaze had sharpened. The platform saw servants hurrying in. One asked if Lady Diella was okay. Another demanded she get immediate treatment. She dismissed them, then walked to her brother. She bowed silently. Reg felt awkward. He told her she did great. Diella stayed bent over, clearing tears from her face. Some maids came near her. They offered to take her in. She moved away and left, ignoring their worry. Inside the calm garden, Derek was by himself on a bench next to the wall. His red eyes were calm. Diella halted in front of him, shaking. She told him she lost, and mentioned her regret. Derek glanced up. He said everything was fine. He also said he was okay. He instructed her to get past this frustration and become stronger. She couldn't hold back anymore. A raw scream erupted from her. One maid then shouted in alarm. Diella's mother quickly entered, calling her name. She fell to her knees, grabbing her daughter's arms, and told her that her child had suffered plenty. Diella's mother then pulled her into a close embrace, saying everything would be fine. She insisted Diella get treatment right away. Diella, still crying and shaking, confirmed she understood. The maids then took her out. Her mother stayed there, wiping her eyes. Derek then started to exit. Diella's mother marched right toward him, then burst out in anger. She labeled him vulgar. She questioned if he grasped his actions. She also mentioned that teaching a 1-star spell wasn't a big deal. Derek remained quiet. She then slapped him, claiming he was tainting a noble lily using cheap tricks and bringing shame to the Grand Ducal House's daughter. She declared he'd never grasped noble values or dignity. Diella's father came over and told her to assess things correctly. He explained that this wasn't even a real magic duel. She kept protesting, so he gave her a hard slap and questioned if she honestly didn't see who acted most disgracefully. She flinched, asking why, and stressed that Derek was just a commoner. The Duke replied coolly that even as a commoner, he taught their daughter, and questioned what kind of parent would treat a teacher like that. The white-haired boy quietly lowered his head. The Duke requested he forgive her, saying every parent loves their child uniquely. The boy stated he was okay with it. The Duke requested his presence in the reception room for a private talk. His wife just watched, feeling frustrated. Once in his office, the Duke complimented him, saying Diella was well-raised and, as the estate's master, he'd offer a reward. He mentioned commoners could legally use up to 3 star magic, then asked if he wanted it. The boy knew the Duke had seen right through him, even his barely acknowledged ambition. He figured chances should be taken. He replied he did want it. The Duke agreed, noting that while he'd effectively taught Diella 1-star spell, that wouldn't suffice for Ebelstein's high society. Derek responded that many in Duplin could guide Lady Diella. With basics learned, she'd advance fast. The Duke maintained Diella didn't just need a teacher, she needed a master. A pen's ink dripped onto parchment. The man kept talking, explaining the boy held an ambition commoners couldn't even imagine. Derek mentioned the Grand Duke hadn't spoken much with him. The Duke questioned if he grasped how offensive such ambition would be for high nobles, so he chose to ignore it for now. What truly scared Derek was the Duke knowing he aimed past 3-star magic. The boy listened quietly as the man added that if he had those intentions, he couldn't stay there long, and asked if he was ready to depart. The boy calmly confirmed that was correct. The man stated he recognized his ambition, but insisted he had to teach Diella a bit longer. He repeated again that a commoner's highest allowed realm was a 3-star spell, then asked if he wanted it. The boy met his gaze directly, stating he did want it. Derek slipped. Derek moved into the library's warm glow. He took a thick, leather-bound book from a high shelf. Dust floated as he opened it. His gloved hand traced dense text and complex magic circles printed on the pages. He grew quiet, then considered it incredible. He noted many people spend whole lives trying to get just one 2-star spellbook, but these shelves held only 3-star spellbooks. He decided this gave him every reason to remain in the mansion longer, and mentioned Pelion would make a huge fuss if she knew. In another part of the estate, faint commotion carried, and time passed beneath a clear sky with birds circling above. Diela showed up outside, freshly bandaged and standing with feigned pride. She made a small sound of contentment, then said she was a 1-star mage now. Derek calmly replied that since she had cast a 1-star spell, she could be considered a 1-star mage. Diela fell silent. Diela then argued that was his only comment. She complained her student accomplished something, yet he showed no happiness. He maintained it wasn't an early accomplishment, as if that made it disappointing. She sighed, appearing tired of the discussion, and noted he was difficult. Derek then observed that she'd recovered significantly in 3 days. Diela tensed when he mentioned her past, recalling she'd cried often then. She instantly denied it, claiming it was just dust, merely a bit of dust in her eyes. She also said her father should have informed her sooner, confessing she'd believed he was getting expelled. Derek changed the subject, asking if their lesson should begin. He informed her that with her rapid growth, she'd soon master other 1-star spells. Diela blinked, confused, and inquired about his definition of quick. Derek clarified her growth had only been this rapid since her mana awakened, and even casting a 1-star spell was uncommon. He went on, seemingly recalling a previous statement, and she attempted to understand. Diela enthusiastically proposed their first activity, itemizing desired spells. Mana Arrow seemed handy without chanting. Windblade, her brother Raig's choice, appeared powerful, and Ice Spear looked appealing. She even considered that with more improvement, she might strike her brother Raig as well. Derek interrupted her enthusiasm, declaring they'd practice mana manifestation. Diela exclaimed why, noting she'd believed they were studying 1-star spells. Derek stated numerous reasons existed, but ultimately fundamentals mattered most. He began simplifying, explaining that mana, in the end, Diela reluctantly agreed to his plan, stating they should proceed since he insisted. Her face, however, showed disappointment. She admitted her excitement was for nothing, as she'd expected to learn 1-star spells instantly. She then saw Derek observing her, and asked why he stared, wondering if her face had something on it. Derek replied nothing was there, admitting his surprise at her obedience. Diela then got angry, asking what sort of person he imagined her to be, and insisted she'd respected his words from the start. Derek quietly repeated, "From the beginning," and his thoughts went back to her smiling while dumping dirty water on his head. That happened twice. Now he reminded her about pouring dirty water on him 2 times. Diela froze, then asked if he still recalled that incident. Derek flatly replied it was tough to forget. Diela ran across the terrace, laughing about the pleasant weather. She tried to change the topic, saying mana manifestation sounded fun, and she wanted to start practicing. He observed her excitement and gave a wry smile. Night fell upon the estate under a bright moon. Diela lay flat on the grass, her back to the ground. Her chest heaved as she breathed hard. Sweat and scuffs showed her intense effort. The teacher stood over her in the cool night air, noting she'd be busy soon. Diela caught her breath, then sat up. The teacher leaned closer. She confirmed she heard it as well. Diela rubbed her head, frustrated. She mumbled, "Whatever," then confessed that etiquette lessons start next week too. The teacher asked if that was positive. He explained her 1-star spell achievement meant she'd get proper noble training. Diela disputed his point. She listed basic noble etiquette, foreign languages, geography, history, botany, piano, and sewing. She said she didn't get why she needed to study all of it. Looking up with disbelief, she wondered how Sister Eislein managed. The teacher explained that's why Eislein was known as the Flower of Duplin. He added she was Ibelstein Society's core. Diela, focused on her desires, stated she only wanted to study magic. The teacher told her to do it. He then mentioned the Grand Duke hired him, giving them much freedom. She questioned if they truly had that much time. He then asked who would dismiss him now. Diela replied that someone was definitely after him. She pointed out her father recognized him, but her mother wouldn't let it go. Her gaze grew serious. Derek asked why the madam wanted him gone. She explained that his lessons took away her noble dignity. The madam feared she'd turn into a mercenary. She added that even the duel lacked noble dignity. The teacher went quiet, his eyes cast down. He then stated the problem's answer was clear. He spoke to Lady Diela, explaining that quieting Madam wasn't tough. He told her to take away Madam's excuse. Diela blinked, taken aback. She made a puzzled sound as the implication hit her. The next day, grand buildings stood beneath a clear sky. Footsteps echoed within. Madame walked the corridor, hands folded, posture stiff. Servants moved in the background as she advanced with measured steps. She thought it unbelievable Diela met such a dreadful teacher. She lamented her poor child's suffering. Her mind flashed through grim images of that teacher's influence, his ruthless grin, his presence like a fighter, not a tutor. A harsh warning rang out that Diela must watch carefully because this was the mercenary way. Diela answered that she understood as his student. Another vision overlaid it. Diela striding, boldly carrying a boar like a savage, declaring this was the famed Ebelstein High Society. People shrieked her full name in disgust and fear. The stress gets so bad that the lady grabs her skull and complains about her headache, secretly raging that some peasant has absolutely nothing useful to show Diela. She doubles down on her anger, reminding herself that regardless of her man's opinion, she still runs the mansion. Rubbing her forehead, she vows to figure out a plan. Suddenly, a voice interrupts her thoughts as Diela walks closer, greeting her mom. The lady completely changes her vibe, faking a gentle grin and welcoming Diela back like everything is totally fine. The mother gently states she enjoys Diela's smile, despite others calling her immature. Her expression then breaks. Warmth fades, replaced by uncertainty on her face. Diela walks up, looking composed in a blue dress, and asks if her mother slept well. Madame gets startled. A sweat bead forms, and she blurts out a confused answer. Diela smiles gently at her mother, explaining she couldn't leave her room due to injuries, so she missed their chance to talk. She mentions wanting to share much, but she mentions her piano lessons are this morning. Her mother appears surprised and replies that she understands. Diela puts a hand on her chest, stating she'll leave first because of her busy classes. Her mother quickly calls out, asking if etiquette classes haven't begun yet, mentioning they start next week. Diela confirms that's right. With a calm expression, Diela says she really looks forward to those classes, due to her mother's care. Her mother hesitates, then tells Diela to rush so she won't be late. As Diela walks off, a maid gets so shocked by Diela's attitude she drops her items. Diela approached the maid, which was unusual for her. She asked if the maid was hurt, and told her not to push herself too hard. The brown-haired maid froze, sweating. She managed a stuttering reply and addressed Diela correctly. Diela kept walking, her blue skirt swaying as she left the gathering. Diela's mother stayed still behind her, watching. Her gaze lingered as Diela exited the courtyard, leaving the servants and maid in shock. The district where nobility met was located past Ebelstein's northern wall. Aisline was smiling again lately. At the previous gathering, she'd seemed so troubled it worried everyone. Aisline admitted her troubles were more visible than she wanted. She said she hadn't intended to cause worry, but most of her pressing issues were now resolved, and she felt much more relaxed. Alente, Count Balmilda's second daughter, was speaking. She mentioned being very worried when she heard Aisline often went outside the noble district to help people. Aisline thanked her for the concern. She explained her recent activities were actually about finding a magic tutor for her younger sister herself, Diela. Alente couldn't hide her surprise. She commented that anyone Aisline personally sought out had to be an amazing mage. Denise, the Berta's family's second daughter, asked if Aisline meant her sister, Miss Diela. Aisline confirmed it. She mentioned seeing Diela at the estate recently and was shocked by her change. Aisline explained Diela now behaved like a refined young lady. Her transformation was so complete, she seemed like a new person. Aisline mentioned Diela now casts one-star magic. Her perfect poise made Aisline feel she needed to double her own efforts. Denise's interest piqued. She noted the Dupreen family rarely discussed Diela previously. Denise asked if Aisline had discovered an exceptional magic tutor. Aisline confirmed her success. She explained the tutor's background wasn't notable, but his teaching skill was outstanding. Securing him by personally negotiating with the Belgian Mercenary Corps proved entirely worthwhile. Mercenary visibly shocked both Denise and Alente. Alente then recalled that the Bomalda household's current head chef had previously been expelled from the Dupreen estate by Diela. Rumors claimed the reason was merely serving overly hot soup. That former little tyrant has now not only changed, but also became a one-star mage. Alente instantly felt intense curiosity about the magic tutor Aisline had mentioned. Alente requested Aisline share the tutor's name. She stated that if he taught Diela, he would surely gain future renown, and she desired his name beforehand. Aisline responded his name was Derek. Meanwhile, Diela told her mother Derek had instructed her in some noble etiquette. She had still acquired significant knowledge. Diela admitted that relying only on self-study would have proven overly challenging. The Duchess found Diela's attempt to self-teach noble etiquette impressive. Diela clarified she'd learned most of it from Derek, though some was self-taught. Her mother ignored Derek's help, asking about Diela's difficulties during her self-study. Diela responded that nearly everything was hard, repeating she wouldn't be at her current level without Derek's guidance. Miliera heard this, feeling irritated that her daughter kept talking about Derek. She couldn't accept her precious daughter constantly mentioning that commoner. Miliera didn't know what Derek had done to her daughter, but she knew this couldn't continue. She could already picture how things would unfold. Others started noticing Diela's recent changes. They said she'd become kinder, even to commoners, and much gentler. They observed she seemed exceptionally happy. Her transformation in just weeks was astonishing. The head servant mentions that people used to only see that kind of class in Eislein, but Dila is finally transforming into a proper noblewoman. Everyone agrees that she acts like real royalty now, and they credit Mr. Derek for the massive shift. Miliera quietly vows to ruin his impact on the girl. Days fly by. Derek starts learning level 3 magic by himself. Even though the guy has crazy natural talent, he encounters a serious obstacle this time. It's like he's at an unseen barrier, preventing him from reaching true 3-star mage status. He understands the books he's been studying, explain magic from the Orthodox faction's view. However, as a wild faction user, he requires actual battle experience for progress. Just then, Reg's voice comes from behind him. Reg apologizes, wondering if he broke his focus. Derek replies it's fine and asks why Reg came. Reg explains it's about Diela and he wants to talk. Reg then sees the book in Derek's hands, asking if it's a 3-star magic tome. Derek confirms the Grand Duke lent it. Reg is clearly shocked to learn his father gave Derek that book. Derek mentions that even if he can't hit that level now, early study won't harm him. Reg suddenly remembered his father had prevented him from challenging Derek. That memory made him sweat. He mentioned Derek was truly remarkable. Derek asked why he was there about Miss Diela. Reg hesitated, saying he didn't know how to put it. He then asked if Derek knew what teen girls typically liked. His awkward look showed he planned to apologize to Diela. He suggested embroidery or maybe a doll resembling Diela, wondering if that gift would be good. Derek instantly recalled the doll Valerian had once made. He immediately rejected that idea, looking serious, saying such a gift was totally inappropriate. Reg admitted he'd thought the same, clarifying he hadn't actually planned to make it. After thinking it over, he agreed it wasn't right and suggested they go back. Walking toward the estate, Reg slowly calmed. He said he was truly grateful. Reg mentioned his home's atmosphere got much better. He noted Valerian was now focused on territory management. Their father seemed satisfied, even if he didn't show it. Derek replied that the Grand Duke's thoughts were hard to figure out. Everyone on the estate probably knew that. Reg then thought he had to face some truths. He said people could change, especially kids that young. He wondered if he just hadn't noticed earlier or had chosen to ignore it. Since Diela had changed, he mentioned wanting to try changing himself too. He stated this was all thanks to Derek, expressing deep gratitude. Derek quietly lowered his head in reply. After a short pause, he brought up Diela's magic. It seemed used a bit differently. He asked if Reg had seen the difference. Reg said it felt almost like painting to him. Derek suddenly understood something. Nobles would always be nobles. Their view of magical power created a natural, hard-to-bridge gap between them and commoners. He explained Diela was using the Wild Faction's magic manipulation method. Reg mentioned hearing a bit about the Wild Faction previously. Derek thought Diela might continue her research alone once she hit a certain level. At that point, a teacher's guidance could actually hinder her growth. He replied that once someone reached a specific level, they'd always have a moment of breakthrough. Before anyone knew it, Diela's transformation started 2 months ago. She spotted flowers one day and asked about their origin. The maid explained she'd seen the blossoms looking lovely. She'd wanted one for her hair, so she'd brought them. Diela remarked on their lovely scent. She felt like spring had stayed for months. She now used 1-star magic effortlessly. She'd also become quite close with the servants. Reflecting, she acknowledged missing so much previously. She credited Derek for everything. The maid noted Diela's unusually high spirits. She figured it was her magic lesson day. Diela questioned if she appeared that happy, then insisted the blossom needed careful placement to look perfect. She kept one for herself, planning to give it to Derek. Soon after, that same blossom fell heavily to the floor. The girl, full of anticipation, received shocking news. Her eyes quickly welled with tears. She questioned its meaning. Valerian, the territory's overseer, confirmed her information was correct. Derek calmly explained that at Diela's current level, Derek's teaching is complete. He has nothing more to impart. He likened this to seasonal cycles, noting that neither winter nor spring lasts forever. Diela's magic instruction was concluding. Derek felt the Grand Duke already understood Diela was part of the Wild Faction, showing a unique personal flair. Derek stated that continued guidance could hinder Diela's growth, rather than aiding her ascent. The Grand Duke accepted this, saying no purpose remained for Derek's presence at the estate. Derek concurred. A short quiet moment passed, then the Grand Duke stood up. He confessed Derek's influence brought about many changes. He mentioned his daughter's growth was due to Derek. He admitted his intense focus on territory management meant he'd fallen short, in certain aspects, as a father. Now, he felt he could finally relax. He inquired about Derek's departure plans. Derek clarified that Miss Iceline would soon visit the estate before heading back to Ebelstein, and he intended to depart with her carriage then. The Grand Duke nodded, asking for the library key's return. Derek responded he'd give back his current magic books and pass the key via the steward. The Grand Duke says formality isn't needed and wants the key immediately. Derek gets it right away. His gaze moves to the 3-star magic book at his waist. When the Grand Duke lets him go, the book's a gift. That's obvious. Neither man speaks of it. Derek gives a deep bow, then exits the study. Diela waited silently in the outside corridor. Derek didn't know how long she'd waited. Diela mentioned he'd suddenly shown up in her life, and now he planned to leave just as fast. Derek asked what he could possibly do. Diela acknowledged he wouldn't alter his choice, but she still had to ask if he really had to go, if staying was impossible. Her voice sounded urgent. Derek explained he'd go back to being a mercenary and keep chasing magic. He told Diela that if she kept getting stronger, he said they'd definitely cross paths again once she entered Ebelstein's social scene. He might have progressed enough by then to show her new things. Diela found him frustrating, saying he always left her without words. Later that evening, she experienced the nightmare again, a dream absent since Derek came into her world. Harsh whispers and cruel laughter came back, despite her current status as a 1-star mage. Though she presented herself as a noblewoman, she felt just as powerless as before his arrival. She woke up suddenly, covered in sweat. Moonlight streamed past the drapes filling the dim room. She understood it was just a dream, and worked to calm her breath. A maid hurried inside, having heard her scream, and worriedly inquired if she was injured. Seeing the maid, a risky idea crossed Diela's thoughts. Derek departs. His presence lacks purpose. But if she created turmoil again, just like last time, that purpose could resurface. She clearly recalls Derek's past remark. The choice was always hers. Diela's expression startled the maid, who again inquired about her health. Diela paused. If she caused a scene, Derek might not leave. She finally said she was fine. She realized that making a fuss would simply invalidate everything Derek did for her. Even if he departs, his contribution shouldn't be for nothing. Time flew by, and their departure day arrived. Nearing Ebelstein, Iceline inquired if they'd stop there or proceed to the commercial district, mentioning its greater convenience. Derek showed appreciation for the care he'd received. Iceline suggested they make their final goodbyes, given their imminent departure. Derek glanced back. Unlike his first day there this time, every younger Dupreen family member had come to wave him off. Valerian inquired if his departure was final. Derek affirmed his need to go back to his place. Reg commented that estate life wasn't simple, then thanked him for his effort. He added that if help was ever needed, he should contact them. They'd assist in any way. Derek conveyed his genuine gratitude. They exchanged nods, and he bowed back. As his head came up, his eyes found the one person who stayed silent. Diela lifted her chin a bit, staring with feigned pride. She demanded to know his reason for looking at her like that. She asked if he expected her to cry or plead for him to remain. She declared she wasn't a child anymore. Derek told her it was an honor to instruct her. He mentioned that even if she couldn't openly name him as her instructor, he hoped she'd recall the magic he shared. Diela instantly dismissed that idea. She stated her full intention to openly announce him as her teacher. She added that even if he wanted a peaceful life, it might not be an option now. He was, after all, the instructor of the impressive Miss Diela. She waited for a reply, but Derek just observed her quietly. Her chest tightened further because of his quietness. She told him to avoid injury while working as a mercenary. He responded he'd be okay, then urged her to look after herself. She claims there's no cause for concern. She states she's grown up now and can handle things herself. Then, Derek remembers something from the past. He used those exact words when Cardia departed. At that time, Cardia didn't seem relieved. Rather, she hugged him close, looking even more concerned than earlier, and spoke a brief message to him. He didn't grasp its meaning then. Years have passed, and now, facing his disciple as she claims adulthood, Derek finally gets it. She's still very young. Her path ahead is vast. The world holds hidden magic currents, and life will bring trials. This small person, declaring herself grown, seems so delicate against that unknown future. Derek then echoes the advice he once received. He informs Diela she doesn't have to grow up so fast. Her eyes widen. She presses her lips together, fighting back her feelings, but the tears still fall. Her eyes get red as she softly blinks. Knowing time is limited, she drops the act. She bids Derek farewell. Tears run down her cheeks, but she smiles, waving goodbye to her instructor. She's about to enter Eibelstein's social scene. Derek mentioned they'd meet again there. He called her Miss again. Soon after, the carriage came to a halt in Eibelstein's commercial district. Derek then opened the tavern door, finding a chaotic scene. A blonde girl was beating a chubby boy. She instantly knew him and said Derek was back. Derek didn't speak, just gave a faint smile. He'd arrived home. Dilla's magic lessons were done. Derek had come back to his homeland. The bartender placed a mug before him. He said it was Derek's favorite honey wine, though not as good as Noble Estate served. Since it was a welcome back drink, the bartender insisted on covering the cost. Derek thanked him. The blonde girl squinted, asking if he'd always been so pale. She noted that after time with Nobles, he looked even worse. She demanded to know how Derek got Nobles to listen. She pushed him for the real story. Derek dismissed it. He said it was only work, not worth talking about. She claimed he was behaving like a tavern master, finally instructed Pauline to leave him alone. Pauline then griped about almost dying from work while Derek was away, handling every mission solo. The owner mentioned that with that setup, Derek probably made a fortune from Noble money. He inquired if Derek had paid the bill well. Derek answered that instead of cash, he'd acquired something much more significant. He then set the magic book, a gift from the Grand Duke, onto the table before them. Both stared in disbelief, wondering if it was a 2-star magic book. They couldn't believe Nobles would give away such a valuable item. Derek set them straight. It wasn't 2-star, it was actually 3-star. The owner instantly claimed he'd stolen it, cautioning that getting caught meant losing his head. Pauline announced she'd gladly steal a 3-star book herself and asked where Derek managed it. Derek strongly denied any theft, explaining the Grand Duke had gifted it to him. They scoffed, finding it absurd a noble would give such a treasure to a commoner. They also accused Derek of adopting noble habits, including theft. He spent a while convincing them the book truly was a present. After resolving that issue, Derek inquired about new job postings. The owner gave him a look, then asked if he'd take a mission just one day after returning. Derek responded that a basic extermination task should begin quickly. He mentioned feeling a bit sluggish after too much time relaxing at a noble's home. The owner reassured him. He explained mages were always scarce in their profession. Derek requested he set something up immediately, ideally for the following day. The next morning, the captain had arranged for Derek and Pauline to go eliminate magical creatures. While Derek was away, Pauline, an archer, found solo missions tough, encountering several risky situations. With Derek back, she didn't need to stress over insufficient offensive power. They finished multiple jobs one after another. The heavy workload made Pauline fall asleep early every night. Derek, though, kept his routine. He'd locate a calm spot to practice 3-star magic. All that actual fighting greatly improved his grasp of 3-star magic. Previously, it seemed far off and abstract. Now he sensed he had genuinely arrived at its brink. However, reaching that point was still tough. Despite this, Derek continued to push his limits. He understood raw talent needed hard work. The days passed quickly. Once Derek confidently used 2-star magic, Ebelstein saw early winter. He and Pauline came back from a mission, freezing. Pauline said the cold was too much, wondering why it got so harsh fast. The captain laughed, noting their youth was amazing, having traveled to the Kent Mountains in that kind of weather. Pauline complained they hadn't known it'd be so bad, wanting to warm up before going out. The captain gave them 2 warm towels. They cleaned blood from their faces, thanking him. Pauline stated she'd barely made it. The captain instructed them to rest until tomorrow. He then mentioned a job ideal for Derek. Derek inquired about the task. The captain called it easy and well-paying, but a bit tricky. This assignment first went to the Rohara Mercenary Corps on West Street, but they turned it down. Count Bumeldi's family made the request. They wanted a magic-wielding commoner for sparring. Basically, a human sandbag was needed. Derek would get good pay if he took some spells. Derek was unaware Alente had sent the request, Iceline's acquaintance. Separately, Alente inquired about her sparring partner for that day. Her instructor explained he'd specifically found a commoner opponent so she could practice her new offensive magic. She wondered if her long journey south from the north was only to bully commoners using magic. He responded that realistic practical training was necessary. He also mentioned that since good compensation was promised, she could cast freely. She then agreed to her noble duty of thoroughly defeating a commoner. Her teacher reminded her it wasn't just bullying. The recruited opponent was a 1-star mage, so he wouldn't be totally defenseless. Alente then noted she was close to becoming a 2-star mage, adding that the difference between 1-star and 2-star was huge. Her teacher replied that showing respect meant fighting with full strength, as that was proper training stage etiquette. Shortly after, Alente met her opponent, guided by her teacher. His youthful appearance surprised her, and she asked if he was truly her sparring partner for the day. Derek rose, gave a polite bow, then said his name. Hearing his name, Alente sensed a weird familiarity, like she'd heard it previously. The training platform was their next stop. Alente questioned if he knew the fundamental rules for magical sparring. Derek answered that he'd heard about it but just knew the basics. Alente instructed him to resist his best and vowed to finish fast. Honestly, she didn't want to hurt a weaker person, so her plan was to cast a shockwave and instantly knock him off the stage. Derek then inquired what she meant by resisting and how much she expected him to do that. Alente gazed at him, puzzled by his query. Derek explained he wanted to know how much resistance he should offer to merit her training. Her teacher helplessly shook his head at Derek's choice of words. Alente, though, gave a brief laugh, then she asked if he meant to entertain her. She told him to resist fully, she reminded him. Derek said he understood and would obey. Instantly, magic bloomed in his hand. Blue mana slowly collected in Derek's palm. He stood opposite Lady Alente in the sparring arena, the air thick with tension and power. Lady Alente started a quiet, elegant chant. Energy gathered in her hand. Watching him, she realized this commoner wasn't just any student. Becoming a one-star mage so young wasn't something to ignore. Still, his confidence seemed too arrogant. She thought he needed to grasp the hidden line between nobles and commoners. Her chant finished. She unleashed her spell. A fierce magic surge ripped across the arena at Derek, but he saw it instantly and remained completely calm. A quick sidestep and a controlled step back let him dodge it easily. The attack missed him, hitting trees past the arena. It exploded through thick trunks like they were fragile sticks, sending splinters and dust flying. Lady Alente's eyes narrowed in disbelief. His easy evasion of her spell felt almost like a taunt. Derek watched her, calm, appearing to wonder what she'd attempt next. His calm look just made her angrier. She felt a surge of annoyance. Despite his talent, she thought he shouldn't act so relaxed with a noble mage. Her only option was to totally defeat him, making him grasp their difference in status and power. She started chanting again right away. Her voice echoed in the arena as cold, glowing magic circles appeared on the ground near her. From these, many ice arrows materialized in the air, like a storm of ice obeying her. She felt sure his skill level couldn't survive this assault. She sharply moved her hand, sending them out. A hail of icy projectiles swarmed Derek from everywhere. Derek didn't even flinch. He just lifted a hand and cast a seemingly simple spell. The moment their magics clashed, Lady Alente's eyes went wide. That modest spell broke every ice arrow. None of them reached him. The icy attack exploded into sparkling pieces. They rained down across the arena, landing by her feet, leaving her shocked. She instantly knew its meaning. That perfect control of a basic spell showed incredible skill. The teacher watching the duel nearby grew more interested. He considered that rumors about Derek might actually be true. That control level hinted at experience way beyond a normal academy student. It even made stories about him being a seasoned mercenary seem plausible. Lady Alente realized her misjudgment. She decided testing him was done. Golden magic started swirling around her as she began chanting once more. Bright light flames danced around her, like a fiery aura. She admitted to herself she'd been careless. When her spell completed, dozens of glowing golden arrows formed around her, each pulsed with destructive power. Derek noticed a change in her strategy, realizing precision was gone. She intended to cover the entire arena with an attack, leaving him no escape. He quietly admired her quick adaptation. Lady Alente raised a hand, sending the arrows flying all at once. A golden light storm rushed at Derek like destructive rain. Dodging was impossible given the wide assault. Derek quickly cast a defensive spell, putting up a barrier around himself. He held it with both hands, ready for the impact. The arrows hit the barrier in quick succession. Each hit caused huge explosions, making the arena shake. Dust and debris flew up, blocking everything. Lady Alente watched from afar. She was sure the constant attack would break his defense and finish the duel. But when the smoke cleared, she saw Derek still there. He was holding the barrier tight, totally unharmed. Before they could react, Derek suddenly felt fast movement. Lady Alente used the dust for cover, then rushed him fast. She held a huge ice spear and hit him up close. Derek felt a quick surprise. He had almost no time to react at that range. He knew her battle sense was excellent. Derek responded instantly. His fingers twitched, then a small spell shot out, creating a blinding flash right between them. The sudden light stopped everything, making Lady Alente close her eyes. She mumbled something annoyed. She tried to get her bearings, then carefully opened one eye, but Derek was gone. He had disappeared. Her vision was still blurry, so she steadied her breathing and listened for sounds. She figured her hearing could lead her to him. Moments later, a weak, magical trace went by. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She wondered if something had just moved past her without a sound. Then, she finally saw Derek again, right in front of her. 3 small spells floated quietly around him. He immediately fired them off, one by one. She barely dodged, but her mind was totally confused. She couldn't figure out his silent movement. As she watched him closer, she understood the reality. He employed a delusion-type spell, which removed sound, and he'd anticipated her sight impairment would make her depend on hearing. This insight enraged her. It showed his prior attacks were intentionally held back. She realized he'd held back from the beginning. Derek, however, kept managing his basic spells with cool accuracy and then cast another, making her hastily defend. Her eyes then widened once more because Derek abruptly rushed ahead, covering the distance at intense speed. She responded with a self-assured smirk. Quickly manifesting spells was her top skill, and she figured she could counter faster than he could cast the moment magic appeared in his hand. However, the following instant surprised her. As Derek moved forward, magic didn't collect in his hands. Instead, it ignited under his feet. The technique startled her, so she jumped back, quickly understanding his actions. He was directing magic via his feet. Moving back more, she saw his toes' very tips were glowing. Each step he took released small spellcraft bursts. That constant pressure meant she barely dodged every strike, but the unpredictable rhythm eventually unbalanced her, sending her to the ground. The teacher observing the match widened his eyes, deciding Derek's style mirrored the wild school of the wild's unpredictable methods. Magic flowed freely there, released from any body part. This freedom made predicting moves almost impossible against disciplined school of regulation practitioners. In the arena, Lady Alente touched her head, then looked up at Derek, giving a nervous laugh while she admitted he was a remarkably interesting opponent. Her face showed genuine surprise. She confessed initially looking down on him, believing the rumors were just exaggerated nonsense from a loud commoner. She slowly approached him, but Derek stayed cautious, watching her closely, wary she might try to deceive him again. She then slightly lowered her head, sincerely showing appreciation. She explained the duel revealed something truly fascinating, and she was grateful for the lesson he unknowingly gave her. A gentle smile appeared on her face, making it look like the fight ended peacefully. The next moment, she showed her quick learning. A bright spark shot from her toe, flying at him like an arrow. She copied the exact trick Derek used earlier. Derek reacted fast. His hand went up, blocking the spell, and his magic caught it. Then, with a sharp arm swing, he threw the attack right back. Lady Alente cried out, surprised, and tried to dodge. But right then, Derek lunged ahead with intense focus, launching another strike as her balance broke. Lady Alente held her gaze steady, readying herself for the attack. Their last clash was short, but intense. It ended the moment a bell rang out across the field, signaling the duel's end. Derek landed with precise control as the magic's lingering glow faded from his hand. No pride or showmanship, he offered a respectful nod. He thanked her for the match, calm and composed. His posture showed no arrogance, his expression no mockery, just sincere acknowledgement. Lady Alente stayed quiet, letting her loss sink in. The estate's bright sky showed the clear outcome, but no frustration appeared. A faint smile touched her lips as she acknowledged his ability. She admitted he was a splendid mage, someone whose talent stood far above the ordinary. Derek answered by turning the compliment back on her. He suggested Lady Alente truly deserved praise, because standing her ground against someone like him was no small feat. From his point of view, her reflexes and awareness were extraordinary. She received his words with quiet amusement. She sat with a teacup in hand and looked at Derek with open curiosity. She said he was surprisingly skilled at giving compliments and already seemed to know how to deal with nobles. She mentioned hearing he was born a commoner, but after seeing his ability, she was certain he must have worked brutally hard to reach his current level. Derek answered calmly that he never really had a choice, and as a mercenary, he simply had to do whatever was necessary to survive. Alente told him not to belittle himself like that. She said she'd always respected people who pushed themselves past their limits. Then, while still holding her cup, she warned him about the old magic instructor standing nearby. She said the old man didn't seem very fond of him, so he should be careful not to irritate him. Right after that, she brought up one final point. She thanked Derek because their little sparring session taught her a ton. She noted that the next championship is happening at the Rosia Salon, and she feels like she actually has a shot at winning now. Derek looked her in the eyes and reassured her that she's easily good enough to stop doubting herself. Alente looked down for a second and confessed that the weaker fighters don't bother her at all. The real target she absolutely needs to crush is Azalin Eleanor Duplin. Hearing that name totally shuts Derek up. Alente instantly catches her own slip-up and turns completely red. She mentally face-palms for running her mouth too much. She quickly regained composure, then told Derek he could go. Derek immediately turned, his steps echoing on the stone as he exited the gazebo. As he walked off, a memory suddenly surfaced for her. The name Derek of the Belden Mercenary Corps came back to her, connecting to an earlier memory. An image appeared. Azalin, always calm, smiling gently, saying that exact name. The realization hit her hard. She quickly chased him, reaching out to grab his wrist, which stopped him. She gasped as it clicked. Her voice urgent, she asked for confirmation. She finally linked him to a past story. He was the mercenary who made Diela, an unskilled girl, into a mage. They went inside as the sun set, its dim light casting long shadows over the estate. In the study, firelight flickered warmly on the walls, a stark contrast to the room's tension. Lady Alente wasted no time, stating her real goal. She said she'd do anything to get the power to beat Azalin. Her words showed strong resolve. Her resolve concealed a deeper vulnerability. When pressed, she clarified her ambition wasn't just to be Azalin's peer. She aimed to outdo her. Her minimum goal was winning their upcoming spar. Derek observed her silently. He noted her powerful ambition. He first labeled it fierce competition. She instantly dismissed that softer term. Instead, she revealed the unvarnished truth. Jealousy fueled her actions. She felt that emotion was ugly and pathetic, yet she didn't try to conceal it. She stared into her tea. Her shaky reflection showed her inner turmoil. She admitted her past treatment of Azalin was wrong. Even with her spreading rumors or finding faults, Azalin only showed understanding. Instead of striking back, she'd even tried to accept her. When questioned about her honesty, Lady Alente said she wanted to demonstrate her sincerity. She'd even expose her most shameful self. She was prepared to do it. She knew Derek, after his time with the Duplain family, understood Azalin's talent and her own weaknesses. That's precisely why she'd approached him. Fire sounds filled the air. Its light bounced off their teacups as quiet fell. Then, unable to hold back, she questioned what steps were needed to beat Azalin. Derek recognized Azalin's immense power. He suggested she'd already gone beyond what most could grasp. She'd likely entered a domain not simply quantifiable. Against that, Lady Alente's odds weren't just low, they were practically zero. He spoke the plain truth. She couldn't win. His words lingered, yet her determination remained. Rather than pulling away, she moved closer, her resolve hardening further. Despite her odds being almost nil, she maintained her desire to triumph. For her, the issue wasn't if winning was probable. Her determination to chase victory was the real question. She then brought up a key point. He'd once turned a magicless person into a mage. She asked if he could repeat that feat for her. Derek paused, quiet for a bit. He then conceded a possible method existed, yet his tone held back. Some issues bothered him, and he needed to resolve them before committing. Her face instantly shifted. Hope replaced her despair. She pressed him to go on, saying she was prepared for any conditions or issues he mentioned. Derek started by questioning if she knew how he'd instructed Lady Diella initially. Lady Alente confessed she lacked those specifics, but claimed it didn't matter. She stated she'd do anything to win. Derek then pointed out he was a mercenary, implying that carried specific repercussions. She, however, vehemently dismissed his worry. She contended that if he worried about gossip or ridicule for a noble woman learning magic from a mercenary, he shouldn't worry. Her ambition was genuine. She intended to become a figure whose name would echo across the empire, and failing to stand at the top of Ebelstein's social world would be ridiculous. Derek watched her silently. She suddenly struck the table, exclaiming he mustn't question her sincerity over something so petty. She knew what mattered more than pride. After studying her for another moment, Derek calmly clarified his meaning was simple. Since he was a mercenary, she needed to pay him. She froze, ready to answer, but then stopped. A flush spread across her face as she finally understood him. With awkward embarrassment, she agreed she could pay him whatever he wanted, nervously remarking the room suddenly felt too warm. Derek looked at her with a darkened expression. He thought if she truly meant what she said, he'd have to meet that resolve with equally severe methods. Under the clear sky, Eileen looked toward the garden and remarked the next gathering would apparently include a magic duel. She'd heard Lady Alente's skills had improved greatly, so she also needed to prepare thoroughly. Standing nearby, Alente caught every single word. The rest of the noble girls got super excited and figured that with a brand new event dropping so soon, they absolutely couldn't miss out on it. As Alente walked over, Eileen and the girls hyped her up and greeted her. One person mentioned Eileen was too humble, and Eileen then greeted Alente, saying they'd just talked about her. Alente replied she knew, having heard Eileen's voice from the hall. The mood shifted, so the others quietly suggested leaving them alone. Alone, Alente, smiling, asked if Eileen truly needed so much practice. She wondered if Eileen had ever known defeat, especially as the Duplain line's shining flower. Eileen took it as a compliment and calmly said her opponent was Lady Alente, so she couldn't relax. Alente added she felt more confident with her new magic tutor. She admitted he was a commoner, but his record convinced her to hire him. Eileen found it odd and noted Lady Alente rarely hired someone like that, making it seem Alente really trusted her instructor. Alente corrected her, explaining Eileen, not her, vouched for the man's ability. Eileen looked confused, then Alente revealed, satisfied, her tutor was Derek. That name visibly surprised Eileen. Alente enjoyed her expression, inwardly mocking Eileen's shock. She figured Eileen felt frustrated since the man she couldn't keep was now with someone else. She inwardly declared that she, Alente Alfona Belmaillard, had taken Eislein's tutor right before her, but Eislein only gave a quiet response, then warmly congratulated Alente. She said Lady Alente truly seemed to possess a wise and reliable mind. She smiled genuinely and congratulated her again. Alente was surprised by that response. She thanked Iselin uncomfortably, feeling panicked inside, since this wasn't how she expected things to go. Eileen started thinking then. She recalled Diela strongly opposing her idea of asking Derek for extra lessons. Eileen remembered saying Diela's progress seemed slow recently, and Derek could definitely assist with guidance. But Diela panicked instantly, claiming it wasn't necessary to go so far, and pleaded for no one to do that. Eileen considered things calmly after recalling that. Meanwhile, Alente mentally kept pushing her. Sure, Eileen would grasp what it meant to lose Derek and then get angry, but Eileen just kept pondering, then softly mentioned Derek was actually a little odd. Alente quickly interrupted, feigning surprise at the late hour. Smiling brightly, she stated she enjoyed their conversation and would depart, noting it was just their first lesson. Alente departed, still embarrassed and flushing privately. Iselin stayed put, attempting to calm her own worries. She figured it wasn't likely very serious since Derek didn't appear to be someone who would commit anything truly awful. The silver-haired woman watched from afar, observing the pair silently with her tea. Meanwhile, back at Belden's team headquarters, Derek put those thoughts away, deciding to focus on his current tasks. The tavern owner saw the increasing requests for House Belmiard and complained, asking why Derek's work kept piling up. Derek replied that at least he didn't need to travel to the Earl's estate anymore. He added that handling the work in Ebelstein made no difference to him. The man noted Derek made it seem simple, then asked the crucial question of whether their lady could truly defeat Lady Eileen in the coming match. Derek paused, then replied the situation wasn't completely hopeless. Holding his mug, he mentioned he had one option remaining. Derek explained that if Lady Alente surpassed the 2-star mage bottleneck, they could win. Even clashing directly with Lady Iselin, their higher rank advantage would secure victory. The captain listened, then told him to put that hopeful scenario aside for now. He asked which plan Derek thought was most realistic. Derek replied this was exactly what he wished to discuss. He stated he'd need his help for the plan, and to ensure everything's safe, he'd also require P-Line's assistance. The captain silently watched him, then commented, Derek was obviously planning something wild and unreasonable. Derek immediately agreed the whole plan began dangerously. Just then, Pelling dramatically entered, shouting it was quite dangerous. She loudly declared those individuals were total con artists, claiming they'd made her suffer and taken all her money before she started crying. Derek and the captain just sat silently while her outburst filled the space. Afterward, funds changed hands, and that evening, Derek reached Housedome Yard for Alente's actual training. He informed her the initial step was live combat. He clarified they'd repeat this 10 times, and only then would they analyze her magic's finer points and depth. Alente responded disbelievingly, noting he was putting her directly into 10 straight fights. Derek calmly stated he first had to see her actual combat skill. Alente observed this method fit his mercenary past perfectly, as his lessons were harsh. Still, she mentioned she didn't care, since she hadn't hired him for dull textbook talks. Derek took her answer, telling her if she was prepared, they'd start. Training continued until sunset, leaving the courtyard scarred from combat. Alente hunched over, struggling to breathe, completely worn out. Derek appreciated her effort, telling her to take a 10-minute break. He then mentioned that following the short rest, they'd begin fundamental magic theory. Alente looked at him shocked, and reiterated that just 10 minutes had passed. She then admitted no mana remained. Derek replied from her back that if she genuinely exerted herself, she'd still find some mana. Following a short pause, he critically noted her spell shapes were incorrect. He told her to focus harder and make 10 additional ice spears. Alente pushed herself, conjuring the magic once more, but Derek instantly observed she lacked 5. He gave her no break, then commanded her to launch 100 more mana arrows. Alente feebly argued she truly had no mana remaining. Derek ignored her excuse, stating that rather than complaining, she should just make one more arrow. Alente finally fell to the ground, breathing hard. Derek only then informed her she had put in effort during the training and could now at least get dinner. He then inquired if she felt okay, adding that if she truly couldn't go on, quitting remained an option. That instantly made Alente sit upright. She questioned if, after subjecting her to such training, he genuinely suggested she quit. She recalled that before starting, he'd issued such serious warnings, she anticipated something truly awful, but to her, this was just normal effort. She stated he didn't comprehend what she'd survived in high society's brutal world, asserting this training level meant nothing. Derek heard her out, admitting he'd misjudged her abilities. Alente then stated she felt only a little tired, having just arrived from a social event. She announced that starting tomorrow, she'd demonstrate her true capabilities and instructed him to significantly increase the training's intensity from that point on. She even bragged that this easy warm-up barely made her sweat. Derek stopped at her comment about tomorrow, asking what she meant. Alente appeared puzzled. Derek then reminded her of his earlier statement. He clarified that this was just a dinner break. As the sky darkened, Alente just stared at him, noting his odd sense of humor. Derek replied coolly that he hadn't taken this job to joke with her. Sunlight blazed over the estate as the day's training started. Derek pushed Lady Alente to continue, telling her to create 5 more magic arrows. Her body immediately shook, and a painful gasp escaped her. Even so, the white-haired instructor maintained she hadn't hit her limit yet and could still find more strength. Mana pulsed around Lady Alente, clearly indicating power still resided within her. Derek showed no leniency, increasing the demand again, this time for 10 more arrows. Her face showed disbelief as she questioned the rising number. Given the choice between more manifestation training or a grueling run, she pulled her heavy legs forward. She picked the run, pushing through exhaustion until her breathing became ragged, and she finally collapsed onto a garden bench. Derek approaches, asking if she's okay. She replies with a forced smile that she's having fun. He points out that quitting remains an option, but she scoffs, stating surrender was never her choice. Her stubbornness just leads to another challenge since Derek announces her break's done, and it's sparring time. Brutal training spans 2 weeks under the cold winter sky. Afterward, Lady Alente slumps over a stone table, her bright red hair spread across its chilly top. She tells Lady Denise to wake her right when Lady Aislinn gets there. She confesses the magic training completely drained her. Denise gently agrees, and Alente mentions she's totally absorbed in her magical studies. Lady Denise looks at her exhausted friend, curiosity in her eyes. She asks why Alente keeps pushing herself so hard. Her reply is simple and sharp. Alente stares ahead with a burning gaze, saying she does it because she wants to win. She states second place holds no value for her. Denise responds with quiet encouragement, saying she'll be cheering Denise would cheer for her. Then, the calm atmosphere broke as Lady Aislinn showed up. Alente felt panic surge and she shot upright. The sudden movement echoed off the garden walls. The graceful, dark-haired noblewoman approached, and Alente's competitive spirit flared at the sight. From a distance, Lady Aislinn told her friends to check out a new clothing store. Alente quickly hid her face, wanting to avoid a direct encounter. She asked Denise if her rival had gone, fearing she'd been seen looking so messy and tired. Relief washed over her when Denise confirmed Aislinn left. Yet, the shame of sprawling on the table remained. Denise said she doubted Aislinn even saw her lose composure, but the dark-haired lady paused briefly. Her blue eyes held quiet worry. She noted Lady Alente seemed exhausted and wondered if she was okay. Their rivalry's weight remained, even without them speaking. A maid later delivered an ornate chest to Lady Alente's quiet room. Lady Aislinn from House Duplin personally sent this. Expensive mana-restoring elixirs filled the box. The maid described the item's worth, but Alente's expression turned icy. She ordered the maid to discard every single one. The maid, startled, asked for confirmation. Alente repeated her command with cold resolve, stating she wanted the gifts removed immediately. She then refocused on her priorities, asking if Derek had arrived. The maid confirmed he'd been preparing since dawn. A letter rested on the nearby table, mentioning the approaching winter and initial snowfall. It inquired about the young lady's cold endurance. Aislinn wrote that her territory had produced many fine goods. She wished to share them with the salon's ladies, hoping they enjoyed a peaceful day. As these elegant words were read, Alente's jaw tightened. Her resolve hardened against what she perceived as pity, and she moved towards her next challenge. Under a sky thick with gray clouds, Lady Alente found he observed her early arrival, but she lacked patience for idle chat. She insisted he properly assess her progress from weeks of training. Derek observed her, his face unreadable. He said nothing initially, and the quiet extended until her persistence compelled his reply. Derek considered their extensive training duration. Then, with a stark honesty more cutting than any weapon, he suggested that quitting might actually serve her better. His words lingered in the chill. This struck hard at the passion fueling her, even while it ruined her health. Lady Alente's eyes flared with rage. She demanded to know why he continued to belittle her. Derek offered a terse apology if his remarks caused her pain, but he wouldn't retract them. She stood tall, her voice trembling with anger, asking how he dare suggest she quit. She stated her objective remained constant. She needed to learn how to beat Aislinn. The argument exploded. Alente yelled she'd hired him for victory, not lessons on giving up. She ordered him out if his sole purpose was to utter such absurdities, asserting he was squandering her valuable time. Derek ignores her fury. He then poses a final query. He wonders what her actions would be if winning proved impossible. His gaze, red and fixed on her, delivers a stark message. Fixating on victory often stops personal development. He believes true advancement sometimes requires accepting loss with humility. Lady Alente flinches back, her eyes welling up. That path seems utterly shameful to her. She then reveals her true self, telling him she's just a shameful, petty woman who spread Azalin's rumors. The titles she received, like Belmard's Pillar and the Flower of Rosiah Salon, seem like empty lies. A deep worthlessness consumes her. She claims she's nothing like those impressive portrayals. Her voice cracks as she confesses petty jealousy took her over. She exclaims she finally accepts the truth, seeing her own inadequacy and pathetic nature. With her confession complete, she states no reason remains for hating Azalin. Derek remains quiet while she shakes in front of him. Despite grasping her situation's reality, she still can't fathom why her heart feels so restless. Her petty inferiority complex's weight continues to crush her internally. She questions why it won't vanish. Ultimately, just one phrase captures her torment. That's self-hatred. She candidly explains wanting him to see her true determination, even if it meant revealing her worst aspects. Now she has her own inquiries. A silent self-loathing had always lived within Alente. Her thoughts always focused on one thing: how to beat Azalin. Initially, it seemed like simple rivalry or jealousy, but her pain came from somewhere much deeper. She didn't actually hate Azalin, she hated herself most. This wasn't just some petty grudge. For her, winning was the sole escape from feeling inferior and the self-loathing consuming her. Her confession's impact made Derek step forward, splashing the wet ground underfoot. He gave her a simple, firm answer. He told her they would win. His face showed absolute certainty. He promised to ensure her victory over Lady Azalin. Sunlight hit his silver hair as he made that promise. Alente slowly looked up. A new spark ignited within her. She quietly accepted his words, agreeing to the path ahead. Days later, the location changed. A carriage moved forward, then stopped at a grand estate, Count Belmar's territory and home. Lady Alente's former teacher emerged from inside, alone. While he surveyed the area, a red-haired noble calmly approached. The noble welcomed him, saying his trip to Everstein must have gone smoothly. Keeping proper manners, the teacher offered his greeting, asking about the Lord's well-being. The red-haired noble replied his journey must be tiring, then invited him to sit and rest. The two men sat down, starting a calm exchange. After a short pause, the noble mentioned it had been a while since seeing Lady Alente, expressing curiosity about her well-being. The teacher replied she was well, adding that she'd recently focused on improving her magic. The red-haired man showed amusement and admiration upon hearing this. He stated he'd never encountered such a talented girl. He was confident she would soon surpass even him. The teacher watched the red-haired lord, his mind filling with anxious thoughts. He knew the truth must stay hidden. If anyone discovered Lady Alente's training by a commoner, both would suffer severe consequences. The noble then casually mentioned his own business in Everstein. This made the teacher respond with polite curiosity. The man then expressed his desire to surprise Lady Alente with an unexpected visit and a present, curious about her reaction. Outwardly, the teacher stayed composed, saying Lady Alente would surely be thrilled. But inside, dread consumed him. He just hoped to get through it without catastrophe. The scene then moved to Everstein's outskirts. A massive, ominous door marked the entrance to the nameless labyrinth. Pelony voiced her unease there, stating something about the situation felt off. She questioned if sending someone delicate like Alente into a dungeon was truly smart. Jaden calmly replied Derek had surely considered everything. Uncertainty spread through the group. Alente then suddenly realized, with shock, she was the one meant to enter the dungeon. Startled and overwhelmed, she asked what her exact task inside was. Was she just supposed to fight monsters directly? Derek finally intervened, assuring her this was the region's weakest dungeon. He explained her job was to sharpen instincts through actual battle. He added that he and the others would watch her, ensuring her safety. Lady Alente, still shaken, questioned if this was truly happening, barely believing it. Derek responded with an intense energy burst. He firmly stated the duel was just days away, and they had almost no time. This was the best way to get ready. Then, he started walking ahead with the rest. After she heard it all, Lady Alente felt even more nervous. She'd never been in a monster-filled dungeon before. The four of them moved forward in a quiet that just made things more tense. A bit later, Lady Alente, scared but curious, carefully asked what was inside. Derek told her firmly to always stay watchful. He said even weak dungeons could be risky. His words just made her feel worse. Right then, Pelene, who'd been checking their area closely, suddenly warned a goblin horde was near. Lady Alente instantly panicked and yelled. Derek, though, stayed calm. He said he'd already felt them coming up from the rear. Soon after, Jaden noted something much larger was getting close. He called it an ogre-like beast. That news just made Lady Alente's fear worse and left her even more rattled. With the tension building, Derek asked Jaden if he could take on the ogre. Jaden stayed totally cool. He replied with a sure smirk, hinting his help came with a price. Derek let out a strong energy burst. He stated clearly that they'd talk about payment later, stressing that staying alive was the priority. Immediately, everyone looked ahead. Many glowing eyes started showing up from the dark, getting nearer and nearer. The terrifying scene makes Lady Alente freeze up, her body shaking as the reality of fighting monsters hits her. Before she can react, goblins charge at them. Derek instantly steps forward, blocking the assault directly. Lady Alente, behind Derek, struggles to speak. Her fear almost silences her. Derek quickly tells Peleni to guard Lady Alente, then he charges into the fight, showing expert sword skills. Peleni provides backup from afar, launching arrows with great aim to take out dangers coming from all sides, while Derek mixes his sword and burning flames to slice through foe after foe as the group performs its duties, perfectly synchronized. Amidst the pandemonium, Alente stays frozen, too stunned to act, her thoughts paralyzed by terror and bewilderment. Suddenly, she feels a huge presence behind her and understands it's the creature they talked about. The view changes to Jaden, who confidently blocks its way, sword in hand, saying he's interested in the monster's bounty. The giant goblin charges without warning, but Jaden quickly moves forward and cleanly cuts off its arm. Meanwhile, across the battleground, Derek keeps eliminating foes non-stop, combining sword skills and fire effortlessly. Seeing all this, Lady Alente is completely shocked, her calm breaking from the terrifying situation. Sweat drips down her face as panic fills her mind, and she realizes the threat is genuine and she could actually die there. The moment's intensity becomes unbearable, leaving her unable to choose her next action. Derek then spun around, quickly telling her a goblin was heading right for her, urging her to be alert. That exact second, the goblin charged directly at Lady Alente, intending to kill. Terror completely consumed her. She felt sure death was near. Her thoughts vanished, and her body froze as the creature approached. Derek's voice rang out from behind her, stating she must defeat it alone. Hearing those words, an internal shift started within her. With the goblin nearing, past memories surfaced, making her confront her self-perception. She admitted she'd always known her past naivety and pathetic nature. Even while the goblin raised its weapon to attack, more recollections appeared, showing she'd often talked endlessly, but never taken action. She recognized the part of herself that envied other people and gossiped about them, acknowledging that was truly her past self. Amidst the fear and chaos, her viewpoint finally started changing, and new resolve formed. Instead of succumbing to terror, she understood this moment was why she came here, to face her weakness and stop being her old self. At that crucial moment, Lady Alente unleashes her power. She gathers courage, then a huge ice arrow appears, its cold energy forming right in front of her. Meanwhile, the goblin attacks with deadly intent, trying to hit her immediately. Derek observes from afar, watching her actions intently but not stepping in. Then, the giant ice arrow shoots ahead with incredible power, going right through the goblin and past it. The monster drops from one powerful hit. Lady Alente achieved this, and it's a major turning point for her. The others in the group, watching from above, feel a silent respect. Before this, she hadn't helped at all and appeared almost like a useless burden unable to do her part. But now, she beats a goblin all on her own. Following the strike, Lady Alente stays put, her body shaking a bit from fear and adrenaline. She slowly looks up at her teacher, who'd been observing from a distance. He calmly tells her this is just the start. Lady Alente responds with a small smile, her eyes showing fresh resolve as she understands she's finally made her initial real move. Derek was by himself near Eberstein's stone walls, reading a letter again. His old master, Katja Flameheart, wrote that over 2 years had gone by since her departure from Eberstein, and she expressed regret for the delayed contact. Katja mentioned she was teaching House Elvester magic to their young lady. The girl's eagerness to learn kept her quite occupied. Reflecting, she noted her time wandering Eberstein, teaching Derek magic was tough, but also much freer and more pleasant. She believed Derek was the most talented mage she'd ever encountered. Katja inquired about his current cultivation stage. She told him he needed to demonstrate his magic when they next met. Katja Flameheart signed it as his old master. For a fortnight, Derek repeatedly read that letter whenever he found an opportunity. Lady Alente, next to him, noticed this and eventually asked about it. Derek explained it was a letter from his master. Lady Alente commented his master had to be an amazing teacher, possessing the patience and character to instruct someone like him. Derek confirmed she was indeed a great master. He didn't react. She then confessed she just tried to provoke him. Derek calmly inquired which part was the jab. Leaving her with no words, she dropped the topic. He reminded her the duel was in 2 days, then asked how she felt. She confessed she wasn't sure. She composed herself, then smiled with resolve, stating that at the Noble District Magic dueling grounds, people gathered expectantly. Amidst the throng, Aislinn chatted with her friend, then noticed Derek from her peripheral vision. Aislinn left her friends and called to Derek. She mentioned it had been a while, and she heard he was handling Lady Alenti's magic lessons. Derek said their paths just crossed by chance. After a short quiet moment, she mentioned he hadn't changed one bit. She then asked if he was too strict with Lady Alente. She also mentioned Diela said he wasn't exactly a standard instructor, and Lady Alente seemed really tired recently. Derek replied that worrying about an opponent showed a lot of self-assurance. Surprised, she questioned his meaning. Derek then cautioned her not to drop her guard, regardless of who she faced. Nobles nearby were all murmuring about the upcoming match. Some believed Lady Aislinn would easily win unless Lady Alente could somehow use 2-star magic. Other people felt bad for Lady Alente, noting her face appeared quite thin. The mood quickly changed when Lady Aislinn showed up. Looking so elegant, she drew stares from everywhere. Her beauty captivated the onlookers. In another spot, steps resounded on the property. Lady Alente proceeded, her sole focus on winning, constantly affirming her victory. Lady Alente stared forward, internally asserting her certain victory. Derek kept an eye on her from the back. She advanced to confront Lady Aislinn. Aislinn gave a kind greeting, mentioning her wish that Lady Alente was doing well. Alente replied with matching politeness. She mentioned her assumption that Lady Aislinn was also well, then noted Aislinn's consistent poise had always influenced her. Aislinn softly refuted the claim. She then confessed her unprecedented nervousness for a duel. Alente gave a smile, then questioned if they were ready to commence. Both women immediately called forth their mana. Aislinn's hand and body became encircled by swirling blue power. Meanwhile, Alente was surrounded by gathering blazing orange flames. Opposing colors of their magic expanded across the dueling ground, pushing against each other as the air between them vibrated. Alente made the first move. She released a dazzling, immense magical display, launching fiery projectiles up into the air until the whole sky over the arena became full of burning arrows poised to drop. With the blazing rain falling, Alente recalled Derek's tough dungeon lesson. He'd informed her that if their duel turned into a mere contest of magical skill, she wouldn't emerge victorious. She then inquired about how she could possibly win. He replied that willpower was the key. He clarified that their entire training regimen aimed to instruct her on extracting every final bit of mana. She then sarcastically questioned if that was just his odd hobby. Derek stated he lacked such pastimes. He then clarified that after both combatants fully depleted their mana, mental strength, not skill, would determine the winner. He'd also instructed her to make her magic as showy and impressive as she could, forcing the duel into a prolonged battle. He mentioned that with mana almost gone, the victor would be whoever could squeeze out just one more drop. Alente then inquired what would occur if Aislinn's mana capacity greatly exceeded her own. Derek's blunt reply was that she'd simply lose. He noted that mana capacity was largely an innate trait, but he recalled that House Belmayard's blood ran in her. Ultimately, he just told her to trust herself. The observing nobles and Aislinn looked on shocked, and Aislinn privately questioned if Lady Alente possessed such strength all along. Alente remained under her personal storm of flames and lifted her arm once more, sending the fiery assault down onto the field. Still, Aislinn held firm. Enveloped in blue mana, she projected her energy, creating a wide protective barrier. She remained steady despite the fiery downpour. Her gaze hardened with determination. She decided she'd be the victor. Lady Alente stood under the sky, unleashing a fierce blazing arrow storm. Golden fire ripped across the dueling area. It rained down in constant streaks of light and heat. She kept firing non-stop. Lady Aislinn calmly raised her arms. She enveloped herself in a wide blue magic flow. Fire arrows hit her shield repeatedly, exploding nearby and shaking the whole arena. Still, she stayed firm within her rotating defense. Spectators watched in shock. Someone mumbled that this was Lady Alente's magic. They added her mana reserves looked hugely increased. Explosions kept erupting across the field. Aislinn watched the attack carefully. She thought Alente's firepower was impressive, but Alente was just letting it all out. Aislinn figured Alente would run out of mana fast at this rate. Aislinn's focus then intensified. She finally located Alente's spot. Aislinn knew it was her moment. Blue magic collected in her hand. It formed a long ice spear. Her gaze was icy and sharp. The spear shot across the field. It tore past the smoke and dust, heading directly for the noblewoman with red hair. Alente moved through the chaos. The attack then went right through what looked like her. Aislinn's eyes grew wide. She then understood it wasn't the actual Alente. She was shocked, thinking it was illusion magic. Aislinn found it hard to believe Alente could manage moving illusions so well, especially since that kind of spell would use a huge amount of mana. Aislinn hadn't fully recovered her calm yet. when the actual Alente showed up from behind Eyeline, charging with fierce resolve. Alente remembered Derek's strategy. He had said this approach would succeed during their planning. When she questioned his meaning, Derek explained to overwhelm Eileen's sight with flame arrows, then trick her using illusions. Afterward, she needed to get close and launch ice spears at short range. He mentioned that even a skilled mage would reveal a weakness and get caught, but he also cautioned that her foe wasn't just a skilled mage. Back in the fight, Alente got close and created an ice spear right next to Eisline. Eisline looked back, startled, and understood Alente was firing ice spears from so near. Eisline knew protective spells were out. She had a single option left. Alente lunged with her spear, but Eisline quickly drew blue mana into her hand, releasing it right then. An explosion erupted between them, propelling both girls back through swirling dust and wind. Alente landed roughly, then quickly recovered as her red hair flew back. Eyeline also got her balance back, her dress moving as she dropped into a combat stance. Alente looked at her, surprised, and questioned what her opponent had done. Eyeline let out a quiet breath, realizing how near the danger was. Derek's previous warning came to mind, telling her to stay alert regardless of her foe. She finally grasped Derek's meaning. Alente's skill and magic use had totally transformed. Eyeline chose to respond with her own offensive magic. She felt sure she'd win a pure power struggle. Blue light appeared under her feet, and many ice spears formed around her instantly. Freezing magic filled the whole arena as numerous spears floated up. The crowd watched in amazement. Someone whispered it was amazing, while another person wondered if they were all ice spears. Another commented that making so many without a chant was wild. Derek observed from afar, calm under his cloak. Eileen's powerful response led him to believe she'd fallen for it. Alente, startled, gazed at the many ice spears, understanding Eyeline had agreed to the power exchange. Eyeline calmly acknowledged Lady Alente's significant growth. Her expression sharpened as blue ice spears collected behind her in the sky, while Alente discreetly concealed a tiny flame behind her. Eisline told Alente to try blocking this too, then released all the numerous ice spears simultaneously. Alente fearlessly glared back, then launched the concealed flame with a hand wave. The tiny blaze ascended like an arrow, piercing and obliterating the falling ice spears. Eileen quickly moved to dodge it, sweat appearing on her face as the flaming arrow unpredictably arced through the air. She was shocked to realize it was a flame arrow, and questioned when Alente had readied it. She hadn't detected any incantation or mana movement, then recalled the previous barrage and understood Alente had definitely saved an arrow from earlier, deploying it for this specific time. The delayed strike flew past Aislinn, slicing across the field, which left her quite rattled. Aislinn realized she couldn't predict Alente's actions anymore, having no clue about her next move. The nobles observing the fight became completely shocked. One noble questioned the events, while another stated they were now evenly matched. A different spectator found it quite impressive. Alente smiled, her confidence growing, and believed this outcome was definitely achievable. She felt she was currently overwhelming Aislinn. Eileen, though, understood that victory was impossible given the current circumstances. Alente's bold tactics had put her a step ahead. Then Aislinn dropped her eyes and calmed her breathing. She chose to restart the match conditions completely. Derek observed from the sidelines with a serious look, stating that this was the real start of their duel. A sudden burst of blue mana erupted from Eileen. Wind burst across the arena, making Alente brace. Alente questioned the sudden wind's origin, then understood it wasn't magic, but raw mana. Her eyes then widened in alarm. She couldn't feel mana nearby anymore. All mana vanished from the field for a moment. Derek noted this was mana alignment, a state where immense mana briefly took over all nearby mana. When a mage pushed mana past their limits, surrounding mana aligned due to the pressure. Eileen formed a blazing sphere over her hand. Mana around her bent inward, creating a huge fireball in the sky. This meant Eileen had surpassed her limits then. Alente looked up in shock as the huge fireball grew over the arena. Eileen lifted her arm, her blue eyes resolute, and launched a 2-star fireball. In a training session, Lady Alente lay on the grass, breathing hard, her red hair spread out. Derek came over, saying he had water and she should drink. She sat by the small fire, taking the pouch, and thanked him, but her hand paused. Looking troubled, she told Derek she felt truly uncertain. She wondered if she could actually beat Eileen with just weeks of training. Derek immediately replied she would win. He then corrected himself, stating more precisely that she'd achieve victory in one way. Back at the duel, people watched the huge burning sphere over the arena. Someone questioned if it was real fire, while another person realized in shock it was a 2-star fireball. Alente stared up at the huge fireball, disbelieving, and asked if it was actually a fireball. Panic hit her. She realized this wasn't what they'd anticipated. She faced Derek, asking what this meant and what she should do. Derek stayed quiet, observing with an expression she couldn't read. Alente shouted at him to drop that dumb look and provide something helpful, labeling him a fraud. The fireball came down, filling the arena with intense light. Alente shook. She understood her protective magic couldn't stop a 2-star spell. An ice spear also wouldn't help. Eileen calmly reached out her hand. Alente knew deep down this was coming. She felt beating Eileen was beyond her. The crowd nervously watched the fireball descend. Right at the last second, Alente dove away, just missing the ground exploding behind her. Dust and fire filled the arena. Eileen gasped. She saw Lady Alente had avoided the hit. Eileen realized Alente employed the identical technique she'd seen just once. Derek observed quietly, and Derek grasped their key distinction. He believed Eileen had no experience with 2-star magic. He felt a 2-star spell, when used by an amateur, just turned into a mana-eating monster. Eileen's hand shook under the pressure, yet she tightened her grip and kept going. Derek saw Eileen recognized Alente's hard work and skill. She was now giving it her all. He figured this was Eileen's method of respecting an opponent who fought so hard. Alente got up from the dirt, gasping for air, but remained standing. Finally, she grasped Derek's thoughts. A slight smile touched her face, as she believed enduring this meant victory. Eileen lifted another fiery orb overhead, stating she'd win. Alente looked ahead with fresh resolve filling her. The fireball closed in. The crowd yelled. A second fireball was there, way faster than earlier. Alente dashed through the arena, using every last bit of strength. The fireball pursued her like a living thing, scorching the ground right behind her as it tore forward. Eileen extended her hand, forcing the attack to keep chasing, but Alente wouldn't slow. At the last moment, she twisted her body into another desperate dodge, and the flames exploded past her. The impact sent Alente spinning through the air. She barely avoided the speeding fireball as it curved beneath her, her body flipping high above the arena under the blazing sun. Eileen shielded her eyes, looking up in alarm. Even while falling, Alente calmly collected her thoughts. She decided that if she moved this unpredictably, Eileen couldn't predict her next attack's path. She also knew a protective barrier would just waste her little remaining mana. Her hand glowed blue. She got another spell ready. Curious about Eileen's next move, a huge ice spear then flew right at her. Eileen dropped down, her palm flat on the arena floor, and brought up an ice wall to stop the hit. Alente couldn't believe Eileen picked basic magic manifestation, not a protective spell. She figured Eileen had almost depleted her mana after casting and guiding 2 fireballs. Eileen was breathing hard, sweat dripping down her face while Derek observed calmly nearby, stating it had finished quickly. Alente touched down, smiling with tired victory. She believed her plan succeeded, finally trapping Eileen. Eileen couldn't possibly have mana remaining. Alente reviewed her own state, deciding she could still launch 2 more magic arrows or ice spears. That was plenty. Her chest filled with confidence. She felt she'd finally beaten Eileen. Yet, a moment later, a new power surge swept the field. Alente's eyes grew wide when fire and ice violently collided. Eileen launched a fireball. The ice wall provided cover. The blast then tore through it. The blast rocked the arena. It threw Eileen back with immense power. She hit the ground, clenching her jaw, but the fireball kept flying. Alente froze as the fiery spell flew past her head, just missing. Her face hardened. Over in the wrecked arena, Eileen lay behind a broken ice wall, breathing hard. Inside, she desperately wanted another chance. She thought if she pushed harder, she could keep going. Her fingers shook as she made blue mana collect again. Her body was obviously at its breaking point. Alente silently watched her. Even though she was exhausted, Eisleen's blue eyes showed fierce determination. Honestly, no noble lady in Everstein had ever been more brilliant than Eisleen. But where there's bright light, shadows always appear. And that overlooked dark corner was always Alente's spot. In Alente's mind, Eisleen moved through a bright blue flower field. Alente stayed in her shadow. A harsh voice from the past came back, claiming Eisleen was born with everything, always pampered. The voice questioned if she truly thought everyone would always smile at her. An earlier Alente showed up behind Eisleen, a cold smile on her face, arms crossed, as shadows collected around them. The taunting voices told Eileen to turn, then demanded she reveal her angry face, the one she made when she lost control. Alente silently stared at Eileen, feeling both shock and understanding. She thought Eileen was like a rare gem, one that just got brighter with more polishing. That idea weighed heavily on her. Eileen's brightness always blinded Alente, consuming her entirely. She remembered dark water collecting around her feet. Black shadows spiraled up, pulling her further into an inferiority abyss. Still, Alente recalled sharpening her blade in that dark place. She kept telling herself she'd eventually outdo Eileen and show her value. She felt she'd eventually escape that endless abyss. Inside the arena, Alente observed Eileen across the damaged ground. Eileen struck her as elegant, poised, and lovely. Despite her messy hair, her form caked with mud, even after she'd tripped and tumbled on the dirt before the crowd, Eileen maintained that serene look. Alente questioned how she kept such composure. Then it clicked for her. Eileen seemed to possess no persona she was frantically guarding. She just existed as herself, always dedicating her all to any challenge. The spectators cheered for Lady Eileen to continue. Some declared she could win, while others pushed her to get up. Eileen remained kneeling, shaking from fatigue, yet attempting to stand. Alente conjured a tiny fire in her palm and looked at Derek. She recalled inquiring if she truly might beat Eileen. Derek had replied she'd achieve victory quite soon. Alente found herself within the somber mirror of her mind, concluding this was it. Yet, even with a win, she understood she'd merely go back to the identical she'd just returned to her starting point. She'd remain a mere shadow in Eileen's presence. Eileen tried to collect mana once more, with faint blue energy pulsing in her palm. Alente observed her for some time, then she gave a slight smile and mentioned it was too bad. Eileen glanced up, puzzled. Alente then raised her hands, stating she had no mana left. Eileen stopped, incredulous, and questioned her meaning. Alente advanced, remarking that Lady Eileen was truly incredible, and she guessed she couldn't defeat her in the end. Alente then announced her forfeiture. She called it an amazing match, as Eileen stayed on her knees, shocked by the abrupt concession. The spectators instantly roared. A noble lady shrieked excitedly, praising Lady Eileen as undeniably the best. Alente offered her a gentle smile, and Eileen gazed back, still processing the recent events. Afterward, the crowd surrounded Eileen, full of praise. They congratulated her, inquired about her 2-star magic training, and mentioned the match had utterly stunned them. Eileen then saw Alente departing into the distance. Eileen's eyes grew wide. She shouted for Lady Alente. However, Alente just walked out, never turning around. Derek stood under the arches. He held a book. Alente then approached him. She told him he'd seen it all clearly, which was enough. Despite her battered look, Alente smiled and said he must be surprised. She mentioned that even she knew how to accept a loss. Then she added he should have seen Eileen's face. Derek asked what kind of look it was. Alente laughed, saying Eileen's eyes were wide and her mouth hung open, like she was ready to quit right there. She said it was so obvious, and even the usually calm Eileen could make that face. Alente never saw it coming. Dabbing her face, Alente admitted that the whole thing was pure comedy, and losing felt totally fine after watching that mess. She gave Derek props, telling him that his help finally made her feel like she beat Eileen. She declared that she was in a fantastic mood right now. Next, she demanded his feedback on her performance. She confessed that her finish looked a bit sloppy, but insisted it still went pretty well. She bragged that she picks up skills incredibly fast. Since Derek just silently judged her, she snapped at him to stop acting like a statue. Right then, she felt droplets sliding down her cheeks, which made her stop cold and demand to know why his face looked like that. Her eyes instantly filled with water. She dropped to the floor, hiding her face, and whined that she isn't some little kid anymore. Derek assured her there was nothing to fault in her showing today. He mentioned she put in immense effort. Alente remained silently curled. She then confessed, truthfully, she also desired victory. She clarified that just before landing the last hit, a thought hit her. Winning that fight even then, she'd remain stuck, reverting to her old pathetic self. Her core nature, she felt, was too ingrained. Eileen at that moment seemed so graceful. Alente mentioned that regarding self-doubt, she believed she far surpassed Eileen. Derek replied that appearing somewhat pathetic was fine. He stated that without courage to seem pathetic, growth would be impossible. His remarks resonated deeply within her. Alente's mind perceived the dark water and shadows, which had once held her captive, start to disappear. For the very first time, she no longer felt like she'd hit a dead end. From a distance, Denise watched Derek and Alente beneath the sunset. Eileen's companions got ready to depart, and one stated they were leaving Lady Eileen. Another mentioned the day's match was impressive. Eileen calmly thanked them. Lady Denise smiled, telling Aislinn she'd been brilliant again, and added that the duel gave her goosebumps. Aislinn stayed silent, then questioned if Denise had also noticed it. Aislinn confessed she wasn't the real winner of this match. Denise offered a slight smile, then dropped her eyes. Aislinn watched her, and Denise conceded that regarding magical talent, Denise felt Aislinn's talent exceeded her own, but that wasn't the issue. Aislinn understood something mattered beyond skill differences. Lady Alente had outdone her in every significant aspect. Alente's rapid improvement in little time bothered Eileen greatly. Derek's face then appeared to her. Her stare hardened, as if she'd found her solution. With evening light on the arena, Aislinn summoned Daisy. Daisy responded with respect. Aislinn mentioned needing to mail a letter to the main estate. Aislinn then looked back, her expression firm and troubled. and spoke Derek's name. She stated she required his presence. The Duke silently examined the letter he held, his gaze narrowed upon seeing Dressed Wolfdow's name. A 6-star travel pass appearing in Ebelstein was already suspect, but that name made the situation undeniable. His eldest son reported Dresd's movements remained unknown, but the customs agreement moved ahead of schedule. He thought this sudden speed-up probably reacted to Sir Dresd's arrival. The Duke pondered. Count of Belmir's Ebelstein visit was already strange, but Dresd's involvement made things even less normal. A master of search-type magic, someone who could read signs and see possibilities, wouldn't act without reason. His son mentioned a letter came from Iseline, asking them to locate a magic instructor for her. The Duke casually replied they should just get her one, but his son clarified it wasn't so easy. Iseline had specifically requested Derek. He added Derek was at the Belmir estate, instructing Lady Alente in magic. So, he proposed sending their butler to carefully discuss the situation. The Duke, however, rejected the plan, stating there wasn't any need. He already had a trip planned to Ebelstein due to Dresd, so he'd manage it personally during his stay. That evening, Derek and Alente were in a quiet room, having tea in a peaceful setting. Alente mentioned she intended to rest for a bit and take a break from her studies to clear her mind. She then brought up Derek's job, noting he'd likely keep working with the Belden Mercenary Corps. Derek readily agreed. With the atmosphere becoming gentler, Alente then leaned in and gently put her foot on top of his with a playful, teasing look. She gently smiles and asks if he'll return when she calls, especially if she needs more magic lessons. Derek gets surprised for a moment, but he quickly recovers and agrees to come. He also mentions he's unsure if he has more to teach her. Alente smiles, pointing out he's oddly humble for his type. She then looks outside, seeing winter finally fading. The harsh, long season ends, leaving a quiet sense of change as she considers how much time went by. Later that night, Derek heads back to the mercenary shop where his two friends greet him excitedly. He calmly smiles, telling them he's back. Meanwhile, the Count of Belmir journeys to an unknown place. The next morning, Alente sleeps soundly in her room as her maid knocks on the door many times. Alente, annoyed, muffled her ears with a pillow. She insisted her rest day meant no classes. The maid hesitated, then explained this was a different matter. She urged Alente to come out and observe. Alente, still irritated, rose from bed and moved toward the door. She said she'd instructed them to state her unavailability. She began to state again her rest started today, but the instant she opened the door, she froze. Her father stood there, overjoyed. He said it had been too long, referring to her as his pride, jewel, and treasure. Alente, startled, instantly closed the door on him. Behind the door, her mind raced. She wondered why her father had suddenly appeared. After a brief pause, she reopened the door, managing an awkward smile. She politely inquired what brought him there, requesting a moment to change before speaking. Her father kept showing his affection, referring to her as his beloved daughter and precious jewel. But before he could finish, Alente shut the door again. Soon after, they sat together for tea. Her father mentioned the young lady of Duplin, saying she wasn't an easy opponent. Alente nods and notes that the matchup taught her an immense amount. Right after that, her dad switches the focus to Derek. He argues that since some random hired sword has such killer teaching methods, they should lock him down strictly within the Belmir domain. Alente paused, noting that vassals would probably object to the choice. Her father chuckled, stating he'd do anything for her. He urged her to trust him fully. Alente then smiled gently, his words bringing comfort. Afterward, Derek and his group went to hunt goblins. During the hunt, a goblin suddenly charged from the rear, targeting Derek's blind spot. Palin saw the threat and quickly alerted him. Derek immediately used his mana to react, but then he felt something odd within. This sensation was new, nearly like 3-star mana. Instinctively, he launched a fireball. A huge burst of fire mana erupted from his hand, much more powerful than he could manage. The spell instantly destroyed the goblins, but its power was too much. Derek gets hit by the backlash too, which hurts him. The blast rings out, and she screams his name, afraid. They head back to the shop after the whole thing. Palin tells their uncle everything, and he's shocked Derek almost died. The blonde subordinate, still angry, complains she can't grasp why mages act so recklessly. She wonders why anyone would cast a 3-star spell just for regular goblins. Meanwhile, Derek looks at his hands. He thinks about the odd feeling he had, comparing it to when he first got 2-star mana. Suddenly, an unknown voice speaks from behind him. A cloaked old man calmly tells him not to worry simply because he feels stuck. He mentions forcing progress isn't necessary, and the School of the Wild originally followed the natural order of things. However, he also notes that advice like that seldom helps mages like Derek. Derek observes him closely and realizes he can't detect even a tiny bit of mana from the old man. Yet, he instinctively knows who this man is. His presence is obvious. He's the first and greatest 6-star search-type mage. The old man takes off his cloak, revealing himself as Dressed Wolf Doll, the wandering spirit. With a calm look, he asks them to get some good alcohol, explaining his travels have made him tired. That night at Dela's palace, the grounds are quiet, yet tense with effort. Dela practices mana by herself. A visible power field spreads around her and across the floor. She concentrates hard, attempting to pull power and make frozen spears from the ground. Her objective is plain, but despite her numerous tries, her efforts yield poor results. Every try saps her strength. Her frustration builds fast. Tired and annoyed, Dela collapses to the floor. She lets out her anger, yelling how tough and irritating this whole thing is. Just then, her brother shows up. He has a calm, teasing smile. He says he figured she'd grown up some, but her attitude was still the same. Dela jumps, then stares him down. She asks him when he got there. Her brother doesn't care about her anger. Instead, he points out she pulled out 5 frozen spears. Even though he's teasing, it's a quiet compliment. He then hints her progress might be from a good instructor. Dela instantly dismisses that thought. She claims her advancement comes only from her own skill. She adds that Derek, who she calls a selfish guy, played no part. Her brother calmly shares that Eileen plans to hire that very selfish guy as her magic instructor. This news shocks Dela. She reacts with surprise and protests strongly. She worries Eileen could face the same treatment she did. Her brother warns her not to spread rumors that might misrepresent Derek. He then mentions hearing at a recent ball that Lady Alente also plans to keep him on staff. Dela inflates her cheeks in annoyance. She quietly wonders about that man's popularity. Her brother states Derek's popularity is natural since he reformed a troublemaker like her. Dela immediately retorts, asking who he's calling a rascal. Her anger quickly subsides. She bows her head, quietly admitting she was like that previously. Her brother smiles again, suggesting Derek choosing Eileen might give Dela another chance to meet him. Dela blushes instantly, stammering a strong denial about wanting to see him. Her flustered response made her denial unconvincing. Her brother outwardly accepted her words, but his tone implied he saw through her. He then notes Derek's reputation is growing fast and hopes the number of competitors trying to get him doesn't rise further. Back at the shop, Dressed drinks his alcohol as Derek silently observes him. Derek's confusion deepens with observation. He couldn't grasp why Dressed Wolf Doll, a mage of legendary caliber, would remain in this kind of place. After finishing his drink with a satisfied sigh, Dressed suddenly addresses Derek by name, confirming his identity. Derek answers respectfully. Though he's inwardly shocked, Dressed already knows him. Dressed then politely requests a private conversation. Soon after, they walked together through the quiet night streets. Dressed observed Derek's magic as they walked. He mentioned its extremely ambiguous, unusual nature. He thought Derek had likely never heard this, since his abilities were already impressive. Dressed then questioned Derek's intense effort and his real goal in studying magic. Derek admitted he held no great ambition. He'd just barely found a tiny bit of talent, and then he got curious about his limits and how much more he could achieve. Dressed showed genuine interest, smiling. He noted that for a commoner hoping to reach a level beyond his present status, Derek still had many shortcomings. Despite that, he offered help. Hearing this, Derek's mind raced with thoughts about Dressed Wolf Doll. Dressed, a legendary 6-star mage, was born a commoner. By adulthood, he'd already hit the 2-star realm. Then, after he started a family, he hit 3-star. For many commoners, Dressed Wolf Doll was more than just a powerful mage. He proved that people without noble blood could still advance using magic. He was a symbol of hope, a spiritual anchor. His village eventually turned into an ivory tower, attracting commoner mages who wanted to learn, grow, and find chances they'd never had. But things changed the year Dressed finally reached the 4-star realm. That's when his story took a dark turn. Dressed came home one day and found his whole family brutally murdered. The terrible scene stopped him cold. He felt overwhelmed by shock and terror seeing the aftermath. Meanwhile, a count chatted with his butler regarding the incident. The count inquired if Dressed had settled. The butler confirmed Dressed was already hidden, and his arrogant commoner mages were also silent. The count chuckled, remarking that commoners always cowered when afraid. He then questioned commoners' desire for magic. He stated that if Dressed reappeared, they would handle him at once. However, before he finished, Dressed materialized before them. Dressed, without hesitation, beheaded the butler. The count panicked, attempting escape, but Dressed was quicker. He ruthlessly amputated both the count's legs, making him fall helplessly to the ground. The count pleaded for mercy, begging intensely for his survival, but Dressed ignored him. His gaze showed only vengeance. Hatred consumed Dressed. He killed the count mercilessly. Dressed became a fugitive for 30 years after that. The imperial family and nobility hunted him, but he kept growing. He eventually surpassed the 5-star realm, becoming a true 6-star mage. Only then did the imperial family realize a terrifying truth. If they kept treating Dresd as an enemy, the kingdom itself might face danger. To protect their authority, they officially acknowledged Dresd's revenge was justified. Then, they granted him a noble title. Dresd became a noble not through birth, lineage, or political favor, but through his overwhelming magic power. Back in the present, Derek couldn't believe such a person was personally offering to teach him. He saw no reason to refuse this opportunity. Soon after, things cut over to the elite district of Ebelstein, right inside the main meeting room at Cleon Hall. Grand Duke Duplin, Grand Duke Veltus Andalof Kellogg Veltus, and the Count of Belmerd sat down to talk politics. Grand Duke Veltus gave Duplin a heads up that planning an expansion past the northern part of the Belko Peninsula meant he had to watch out for those mazes inside the White Zone. The guy even offered to send over his own warriors if the operation needed backup. Grand Duke Duplin instantly laughed off the whole idea. He clapped back by asking if those so-called warriors Veltus kept bragging about were just trashy hired guns. Veltus just grinned and casually noted that running such a massive area with nothing but personal guards sounds like a nightmare. He followed that up by suggesting that giving up the land altogether was always on the table. What was said clearly upset Duplin. The Count felt the tension build, so he laughed uncomfortably. He tried to lighten things up. He then proposed they go see their kids, since the meeting was almost done. Duplin brought up that he'd heard the Count's daughter, Alente, had matched Eileen in a fight. The Count proudly smiled, saying Alente did lose, but her abilities were finally showing. He was sure that if Alente got good training from an expert, she'd definitely beat Lady Eileen later on. Duplin instantly mentioned Derek. He stated quite coolly that if Derek taught Eileen instead, Alente wouldn't ever beat her. The Count felt a little annoyed, yet he maintained his smile. He responded that it likely wouldn't occur since Derek and Alente's connection was already strong. But Duplin inside totally disagreed. He thought the Count didn't get Derek's personality and questioned if Derek would pick base just on feelings. Meanwhile, Grand Duke Veltus silently pondered Derek's identity. Nobles trying so hard to get him showed his clear worth. Veltus instantly chose to have Denise look into Derek herself. Afterwards, the Count went to the shop himself. The owner offered a casual welcome, but he froze in surprise after recognizing his visitors. The Count inquired if this was the Mercenary Guild. A bit later, after getting a drink, the Count explained he came personally because his letters received no reply. The owner apologized, then hesitated to explain. After a brief pause, he explained Derek had been missing for several days. They'd also been searching for him. A few days prior, he'd simply announced he was refusing all requests, then vanished. The Count became thoughtful, wondering if Duplin or Veltus had already taken him, but he quickly dismissed that, as no such news had reached him. He decided he'd have to find Derek himself. The scene then shifted to Denise. She sat comfortably in her chair, reading a letter while casually eating an apple. She asked her maid Bella when the letter arrived. Bella explained it came early that morning, sent urgently by the patriarch himself. Inside the letter, Veltus ordered Denise to quickly locate a man named Derek and recruit him as her instructor. Denise sighed in annoyance after reading it. She assumed her father was rushing because Derek's standing was at its lowest. Still, the timing deeply annoyed her. This day meant a lot to her. She'd waited for it more than anything. Rayleigh, her favorite author, had a new book out. Its title was The Lady Submits to the Cold Grand Duke's Ice Greatsword. Denise got super excited, wondering what that ice greatsword meant. Her curiosity almost overwhelmed her, but she knew she had no choice but to obey. Her father would just nag her forever if she ignored the order. Denise accepted reality, telling Bella to get her clothes ready fast. With resolve, she announced she'd go out to find someone. Night deepened, and the scene moved to a distant, shadowy cave. Cold stone walls faintly echoed as Dresden and Derek faced each other. Their training continued silently. The air felt calm but tense, lit only by Mana's soft glow. Dresden told Derek to close his eyes, releasing his mana like a fine mist. He explained Derek needed to feel mana spreading through the cave, touching every surface, then returning to him. Derek obeyed his instruction. Green mana rose around him, expanding through the cave like a flowing wave. As it spread outward and bounced back, Derek sensed the cave's shape through the returning energy. Dresden broke down how tracking spells actually work. He explained that the power upgraded with every single tier. The first level gave you basic danger radar to pick up on nearby threats. Tier 2 allowed people to pinpoint coordinates and spot distant mana trails. Level 3 got strong enough to bust illusions and expose hidden targets. Moving up to level 4 meant looking right through enemies to predict their exact plans and physical plays. By level 5, the caster unlocked mind reading and could chat with ghosts. Saving the best for last, level 6 unlocked the ultimate perk, which let you look straight into tomorrow. Derek completely lost his mind, especially over the part about predicting tomorrow. Noticing his panic, Dresden casually dropped that he already witnessed tomorrow, which explained exactly why he tracked Derek down in the first place. He confessed that Derek was essential for what lay ahead. Derek started getting super stressed. He demanded to know his upcoming timeline and what kind of mess was waiting for him. Dresden suddenly brought up Valerian, who was the firstborn child over at House Duplin. He warned that before Derek even grew up, Valerian would get completely hooked on necromancy. To stop that disaster, Dresden stated that Derek needed to take Valerian out before everything hit the fan. That massive claim left Derek spinning with endless doubts. He couldn't figure out why Valerian would dive into necromancy or what sort of scheme the guy was actually cooking up. Dresden wouldn't share more. He explained the future wasn't simple. Recklessly learning too much could make upcoming days even more unpredictable, twisting events in complicated ways. Still, Dresden chose to reveal a final truth. He informed Derek that Derek's fate was death. Derek stayed quiet. The cave grew silent again as the prophecy's weight settled over them. Dresden saw Derek's calm reaction and seemed surprised he wasn't more shaken. After a quiet pause, Derek responded with resolve. He noted Dresden only said he was destined to die, not that it was definite. Dresden also didn't want Derek to die. He insisted Derek must survive and said he'd ensure it himself. For survival, Derek needed overwhelming strength. Dresden lifted his hand. Mana gathered in his palm, then exploded outward. A terrifying power surge shot skyward, forming a huge glowing halo around the moon. Blue lightning currents danced across the heavens, and the sky itself warped beneath the immense mana-created pressure. Derek remembered Dresden's words after seeing the amazing sight. A bright, bustling city morning then appeared. People went about their usual daily routines on the streets. A fancy carriage halted, and Denise exited it, her beauty instantly catching the eye of nearby people. She told the driver to wait and rest. She'd walk the rest of the way. The driver respectfully complied. Walking with Bella, Denise saw people constantly staring, and she jokingly thought it was because of her beauty. Bella looked disgusted, then directly told Denise her room was a mess, she rarely bathed, and she typically spent her days piled up reading. Bella said Denise's normal look was bad enough, but today she seemed even worse. Denise just laughed, complimenting Bella's humor. Bella confirmed her seriousness and pressed Denise to move quickly. She cautioned that a different noble family might hire Derek first. Denise showed no worry. She stated her pace wouldn't matter, even if it was slow. She'd still outpace everyone. Bella then sarcastically pointed out Denise's consistent lateness for lessons. Denise changed the subject to Derek. She remembered hearing that Derek had turned down all offers and vanished. Bella asked if Denise had heard her at all, but Denise's thoughts were already fixed on Derek. Denise figured Derek wouldn't turn down money. If he quit being a mercenary, then something bigger must have come up for him. A person able to use such powerful magic so young would only quit his job if he found something truly amazing. Denise thought he might have found a strong grimoire or met an amazing teacher. If so, then he wouldn't have time for regular mercenary work. But she recalled Derek willingly left Dupley Mansion, a top spot for magic training. Given few places were better for magic than that mansion, he must have found something much better. Before she thought more, Bella said they were there. They both went into the mercenary guild leader's shop. The leader seemed shocked to see Denise herself. He mentioned that even noble young women were now looking for Derek. The leader didn't know Derek's location. 3 groups had already asked that morning, and he had no new information. Denise then calmly inquired if Dressed Wolf Doll had been to the guild lately. This visibly startled the leader, but he eventually shared all his knowledge. Denise felt satisfied, so she thanked him and then immediately decided to review the carriage transit logs next. Bella went right along with her. The location changed to the Ebelstein Commercial District Coachman's Guild, where Denise and Bella looked through official travel papers. Bella asked how Denise knew Dressed had been there. Denise said the solution was clear from the beginning. Derek had willingly left a 5-star mage's mansion, even though he was totally dedicated to magic. So, only a 6-star mage showing up could capture his attention. Denise already knew a 6-star mage arrived in Ebelstein, so she just made an educated guess. She thought the old mage had fallen right into her scheme. Feeling pleased, she smugly questioned if she was, in fact, a genius. Bella quickly stopped her, stating Denise hardly ever used her mind. Denise again took the insult as a compliment, praising Bella's cleverness. Denise dramatically sighed, feigning extreme tiredness from being so skilled. She even mentioned wanting to be unskilled instead. Bella asked if Denise liked her talking back to her master. Denise ignored her, saying Bella only saw her attractive qualities. Bella silently knew Denise never listened. Yet, Bella raised a major issue. Finding Derek first was one thing, but recruiting him would be tough. Strong families like Duplin and Belmerd were already after him. Denise totally brushed off the worry. She claimed recruitment would be simple since she had a flawless strategy. Bella inquired about her plan, and Denise confidently stated she'd use a honey trap. She thought Derek was just a passionate young guy who couldn't resist her beauty. Bella responded with more revulsion. She told Denise their toughest competitor was Lady Aisling. Denise instantly claimed she was clearly more attractive, begging Bella for confirmation. Bella dryly observed this was the only subject Denise ever truly heard. Right then, Bella located a crucial record. 7 days prior, a robed boy with a travel pass went to the outskirts. The boy went to Ramhill Hill and the Laspa Great Cave. Focus then moved to the Laspa Great Cave, where Derek kept up his intense training with Drest. Mid-session, Drest suddenly felt unknown presences getting close. He calmly told Derek that House Beltis members were here, apparently for him. Drest then instructed Derek to go out and greet them. Meanwhile, Denise and Bella moved carefully deeper inside the cave. Bella got super scared, pleading with Denise to stop. She proposed going back to tell the patriarch everything, then returning with soldiers. Denise instantly said no. If soldiers got involved, she'd miss her chance to take credit. Even worse, bringing in troops might tip off rival houses, letting someone else grab the glory. Suddenly, Bella freaked out, pointing into the dark up front. Huge red eyes shone from the shadows, looking right at them. Denise quickly told Bella to get behind her as she got ready to fight. They thought the cave was clear, but Denise spotted a dangerous creature remained. She privately felt her offensive magic was weak, but she had to fight. Mana swirled as she prepped a spell. Then, the truth appeared. Those terrifying red eyes were Derek's, not a monster's. Derek, with composure, greeted Lady Denise. He called the place humble. Denise stared in shock, realizing the mysterious mercenary she sought was finally before her. Then, a confident smile spread across her face. In her mind, she decided it was time to make Derek hers. As Derek came closer, Denise hesitantly asked if he was Derek. Derek, with calm red eyes, confirmed that was correct. Denise smiled faintly, feeling relieved. Her pale dress hem rises gracefully. She expresses relief, saying her true purpose was meeting him, Derek. She wished for a discussion, even a single one. Derek watches her, showing no emotion. He calls it a pleasant chat. Denise and Bella both hesitate from his blunt answer. Bella grows rigid, and Denise's smile falters. Denise still tries. She says she can't express how many dream encounters they've had. She mentions hearing he's an excellent mage and instructor. Smiling shyly, she adds that Derek teaching her would bring immense joy. Derek stares blankly, asking about her overly dramatic tone. He questions if she's practicing a play since the cave echoes. Bella lowers her head, shaking as she fights laughter, but a chuckle still escapes. Denise freezes, her expression tight. Denise realizes her shy, pretty act won't work. She then chooses a different strategy. Denise spoke up once more, explaining she'd felt quite a bit after seeing the duel involving Lady Aisling and Lady Alente. Her face grew desperate as she mentioned that, as a member of the Rosea trio, she felt she was the sole one lagging. She expressed worry about being left behind if others progressed while she remained stagnant. Denise then lunged at Derek, clutching him with tear-filled eyes, begging him to rescue her. She internally believed she was now a pathetic, desperate beauty. She also figured they were so near he'd feel her breath, and his heart would pound too much to refuse. Derek just blocked her move, putting space between them. Denise blinked, puzzled, wondering what occurred. Derek calmly stated he wasn't convinced. He explained Lady Denise didn't appear very interested in magic, based on his observations. He reminded her that before she'd confused him with a monster-enchanted ice spear. He called it clumsy, extremely clumsy. He noted her mana flow, incantation speed, and all her preparations were insufficient. He acknowledged her basic mana capacity was great, but said it lacked any organization. He added this just showed how little magic practice she did. Denise stood stunned, rattled by his direct evaluation. Behind her, Bella reacted silently, as if his comments hit home. Derek then lowered his voice, saying he'd offer some advice. He cautioned her against discussing sincerity with falsehoods around a magic enthusiast. He mentioned some might find that insulting. Denise just stared, speechless. Derek then turned, stating he didn't know her reason for needing him, but it wasn't magic. He added that he refused requests from those whose real intentions were unknown to him. Denise panicked, asking him to wait. She tried to speak, but Derek kept walking. He advised her to seek someone more skilled than a mere mercenary like himself. He added that would suit her status better, my lady. Denise stood there silently as Derek vanished into the cave's depths. Later, with dawn painting the forest beyond the cave, Denise walked with Bella, announcing she'd figured out that man's real identity. She started to claim he was definitely impotent, but Bella quickly cut her off, insisting he was simply an upright individual. Denise argued it made no sense. She pointed out that a beauty like her, using high-end cosmetics and expensive perfume, still got rejected, so he had to be impotent. Bella interrupted again, stating that logic didn't apply. She urged Denise to calm down and consider how to mail a letter to the main house. Denise retorted that Bella was amusing for telling her to relax. She questioned what she needed to calm down from, or if she appeared angry. She maintained she wasn't mad about this at all. Bella softly remarked that Denise was obviously furious, then quickly apologized. Denise shut her eyes, placing a hand on her chest. She privately acknowledged a growing competitive feeling. That evening, Denise sat by a campfire, alone, hugging her knees as flames flickered. Bella stood close, asking if Lady Denise would truly be all right. Denise stated that if she retreated, another family would claim Derek. She felt she needed to secure his affection quickly. Bella gently advised her not to overexert herself, then mentioned she was leaving. Denise quietly looked up, whispering Bella's name. Denise, with a serious expression, told Bella she understood Bella's suffering, knowing her own constant selfishness caused it. She then called it a crucial favor, expressing her strong hope Bella would complete it. By the fire, Denise softly smiled, requesting Bella bring Volume 4 of the Duke's Pillar of Fire Melts the Commoner Ladies when she returned the next day. Bella gave her a tired, disappointed look. The following morning, sunlight appeared above the forest and the great cave's entrance. Inside, Derek meditated silently. He opened his eyes, hearing someone approach with difficulty. Denise arrived, carrying a big box in her arms, breathing hard from the exertion. Derek observed the box, then asked what it all was. Denise smiled widely, saying it wasn't much. She explained her limited capabilities, but offered to help him concentrate on his magic training. Derek watched her impassively, stating her actions wouldn't alter their situation. Denise calmly stated it was fine. She felt she was developing just by observing, so he shouldn't worry about her. Denise, with a smile, considered that if he was human, he'd eventually grow fond of someone offering so much. She figured he could appreciate her as much as he wished, and feel as thankful as he desired, since ultimately, she'd have the last laugh. Derek grabbed the box, saying he'd take it thankfully. Denise's eyes lit up. She thought he'd accepted and taken the bait, but Derek instantly added he still wouldn't be her instructor. He bit into the bread directly before her. Denise froze, realizing he was turning her down while consuming her food, pondering what sort of person he was. The next morning, Denise reappeared with extra provisions, happily stating she'd brought food and magic crystals. Derek responded he still wouldn't be her instructor. The following day, a chef stood by her, explaining their head chef had made a complete meal for Derek. Derek thanked them, but refused. Denise then offered a big, polished ore, eagerly telling Derek to see it, thinking it could assist him. Derek told her she could hand it over, but he still wouldn't agree. Outdoors, Denise fumed with anger, considering him a self-centered exploiter. She raged that with her being so kind, he ought to show some influence. Bella hurried over, lugging a huge pack, and alerted Lady Denise to an issue. Denise inquired if Bella meant a larger problem existed than their current one. Bella replied that House Duplin's head butler was approaching. Denise's face grew stern. She instantly instructed Bella to conceal themselves for the moment. Bella questioned what to do with the tent, but Denise admitted she didn't know, telling her to simply consider it Derek's and hide. The head butler shows up shortly, bringing attendants, maids, and guards. Denise and Bella hide behind a rock, observing them go by. Denise questions the large group, wondering if they're heading to war. Within the cave, Derek confronts the head butler and reviews the letter. He expressed that instructing Lady Iseline in magic was an honor. Denise, concealed close by, shows shock. The head butler indicates his understanding, then questions if Derek would get ready to depart with them right away. Derek replies negatively. Denise looks on, bewildered. Derek clarifies he'd only leave once his training concludes, but he's unsure of the exact timing. The head butler inquires about the outcome if he raised the compensation. Denise observes silently, clutching the rock. Derek apologizes, stating his current skill level wouldn't allow him to assist Lady Iseline effectively. He adds he won't teach magic without full dedication. Denise silently looked down. She saw his refusal wasn't from pride or greed. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Iseline turned with interest, asking if Derek's spot was really found. A maid confirmed it was found. She explained the head butler visited him personally last night. Iseline said the maid should have told her since she planned to ask him herself. She then declared she had to leave right away, ordering them to gather the fastest soldiers. The maid hesitated, warning the ground was very rough. Iseline smiled brightly, saying this was for her teacher's welcome, so students needed to go personally. Night returned near the cave. Denise sat by the campfire, wrapped in a blanket, looking completely exhausted. Bella stood nearby. Denise quietly suggested they head back tomorrow morning. Bella agreed, saying she understood. Then Bella gently said Denise gave up fast because she was smart. Denise stiffened, asking if Bella truly thought she was a fool. Bella quickly denied it, saying of course not, and asked what Denise meant. Denise looked down, admitting her stubbornness once helped her achieve anything. But this time, she just doesn't want to be stubborn. She's under the blanket, wondering why she feels so drained. Bella looks at the night sky, saying the mercenary mage isn't swayed by someone's background or money. She adds that he seems to act on a much more important value. Denise goes quiet. Derek's words come back to her. How he said he couldn't help Lady Eileen much at his current level and didn't want to teach magic half-heartedly. That sincerity makes Denise bury her face in her knees, wondering why everyone is so sincere. Inside the cave, stones shake and lift from the ground while Derek meditates. Blue mana spins around him, his cloak moving as he controls the rocks with intense focus. His red eye narrows, and the floating stones suddenly shoot across the cave. Denise walks into the cave and softly apologizes for interrupting his training. She stands before him in her cloak and asks if she can sit next to him. Derek doesn't speak at first. Then, after looking at her, he says she looks a bit different today. Denise wonders if her casual speech is the reason. Derek replies that's not it. Her eyes are different. Denise stops for a moment. She then apologizes for bothering him so long, saying she'll quit it now. He thanks her for everything. Derek shuts his eyes, expressing his hope she finds a good teacher. Denise takes a seat next to him, muttering about that teacher. She then declares her hatred for magic. Derek watches her quietly as she explains it's just politics and acting. She confesses she only tried to keep him close since he got famous, but notes he's too proud. She figures she should step aside, since he'll join A's line regardless. Derek asks why she dislikes magic. Denise pauses, then says she once enjoyed it. She then corrects herself, saying that's not quite right. Gazing down, she admits she just liked getting praise. Her memory shows her younger self within a mana circle, beaming as adults praise her. She explains magic was just a tool. Praise was her real desire. She studied hard, earning the genius label. One day, she sat alone with many books. A thought hit her. Why was she doing this, and what was its purpose? So, she quit. Derek mentioned that people eventually tire of praise. She seemed surprised by this. Denise gave a slight smile, asking if he was really hearing her story. She'd expected to just talk to herself before departing. Derek softly wished her safe travels. Denise watched him briefly, her expression softening. She then stood, admitting she felt jealous. She envied someone like him, who didn't doubt the value of hard work. With a slight smile, she predicted he'd be a great mage. Derek stayed quiet, his red eyes unreadable as he watched her. Denise wrapped her cloak tighter, softly telling him to at least say hello if their paths ever crossed again. Derek stayed seated silently as she left the cave. Aislinn reached the cave under the bright morning sun, bringing soldiers along. Denise and Bella stood on the slope, watching the group get closer. Denise glanced back with a slight complex look, then turned away as wind lifted her long hair. Inside the Veltus Grand Duchy's residence, Bella cares for Denise. She asks if Aislinn faced rejection. Bella confirms it, saying Derek acts unpredictably. Denise, however, silently considers his training isn't finished. So, she thinks it's likely not a real rejection. Bella tells Denise to stop her worrying. Denise sits, hands clasped, saying Derek will probably inhabit a cave permanently, becoming a bear, mirroring Eastern legends. She then dismisses that thought. She wonders if he believes he's the sole person worldwide able to use magic. Bella then tells her a guest arrived for a meal. Denise asks about the guest's identity. The door then opens, and Denise enters, politely greeting her father. But the moment she glances inside, her eyes sharpen. Derek sits at the dining table, calmly eating as a servant stands close by. Denise stares, confused, wondering what's happening. The setting changes to last night. Within the cave, Derek sits solo, enveloped by flowing blue mana. He's concentrating hard. He believes aligning mana flow is the goal. He pushes harder, convinced he just needs a bit more, until mana converges to a single point. His red eye suddenly opens. Derek slams his hand down, and blue mana explodes throughout the cave. Rocks shatter, the ground shakes, and the force hurls debris into the air. Derek barely stays crouched, breathing hard, sweat pouring down his face. Drest stands behind him, warning Derek might collapse at that rate. He says it'd be a waste for Derek to die after finally learning it. A notice appears, stating Derek acquired the 3-star spell, Tectonic Shift. Later, Derek was with Drest by the campfire. Drest told him he had nothing more to teach Derek at this point. He reminded Derek of his previous words, that mediocre talent wouldn't ensure his survival. He then told Derek to consider how far he wanted to climb. Then Drest mentioned the food was ready and told Derek to eat. Drest then stood up, preparing to depart. Derek asked where he was headed. Drest replied he'd be out for some fresh air. Before vanishing into the dark woods, Drest called out to Derek. Derek looked up, and Drest warned him about Kohala. Drest moved through the trees until his form disappeared into the night. Derek stayed by the fire, understanding Drest was departing. He sat there alone, flames before him, silently replaying the warning in his head, pondering Kohala. Over at the Grand Duchy of Veltus, inside Veltus Mansion, Denise's father expressed his great pleasure. He noted that Denise's initiative brought a valuable magic instructor directly to them. Denise, sitting calmly with tea, thanked her father, explaining she just did her duty. Her father then stated Derek must have had a reason to decline Duplin's request. He urged Derek to be honest, vowing to help him however possible. Derek at the table quietly stated he only needed his mentioned reward. He added that Lady Denise's attitude was his sole reason for accepting. Denise's father instantly praised her attitude, calling it wonderful. He wondered what other young lady on the continent could rival Denise. He declared anyone seeing her would find teaching her irresistible. He then started recounting when a maid broke a plate. The maid confessed to a grave sin, seeking forgiveness. He said Denise then smiled angelically, starting to explain she valued something more than that plate. Denise calmly interrupted him, addressing her father. He then paused. Denise, still smiling, stated they should discuss the lessons now, just her and the instructor. The room soon fell silent. Derek stayed seated as Denise kept drinking tea. Denise looked at him, asking his purpose there. Derek simply replied he was drinking tea. Denise questioned if he joked. Derek requested her pardon, then denied it. She reminded him he'd refused, asking if their break wasn't final. Derek lowered his gaze, stating gratitude for the events in the Laspa Great Cave. He mentioned receiving significant assistance because of her. Denise crossed her arms, reminding him she'd called it a political move. She then stated she wouldn't learn magic. Derek confessed he hadn't felt right about that. Derek's face darkened. He argued she couldn't judge magic as good or bad without understanding it, especially with such hasty conclusions. Denise went quiet. She then tilted her head, saying that, yes, it probably felt bad for him, but she insisted her dislikes were her dislikes. He called it a shame. Derek's red eyes narrowed. He stated she understood nothing positive about that brilliant, beautiful magic, yet still felt such antipathy and disillusionment. He sharply declared he wouldn't tolerate it. Denise recoiled from his sudden intensity. She realized this was ridiculous, and she shouldn't have provoked him. In another part of the noble district, Iseline sat alone in a silent room, her head bowed, deep in thought. Her thoughts returned to earlier events. She was in the cave, facing Derek, with soldiers around them. Derek calmly addressed her as Lady Eileen. He told her there was nothing he could teach her. He clarified her base was already strong, suggesting she should seek guidance from a teacher from her own school of thought. Afterward, he apologized. Iseline silently watched him, understanding his choice was final. She privately felt his comments were not praise. Her hand rested on the window. She considered how the established norm had once been her entire world. She understood she wasn't truly free. Someone knocked on her door. A maid called out, and Iseline invited her inside. The maid entered, announcing a letter from the main house. Iseline inquired about its contents. The maid explained young Master Valerian's departure ceremony was scheduled for next week. Eileen noted the next week had arrived. She mentioned this was his initial departure ceremony, so a nice gift was necessary. She chose to visit the shopping area. The white zone posed risks, so preparation was crucial, she stated. Her departure was marked by a chair ominously breaking and falling over behind her. Later that evening, inside Denise's mansion, located in the Ebelstein Noble District, Denise was sprawled on her bed, mumbling that Derek had really lost his mind. She griped about his wide-eyed glare and his claim she knew nothing positive about magic. She stated magic only benefited him, so his forcing it on others made no sense to her. Bella observed silently, then remarked that if Denise understood this, she'd stop making Bella read those crude novels. Denise instantly retorted that Bella knew nothing worthwhile about those stunning and clever works, adding she wouldn't permit such talk. Bella calmly stated it was a case of like teacher, like student. Denise objected, asking for clarification. Denise sighed, then called Bella's name. Bella mentioned she found those novels uninteresting, but Denise countered that wasn't the issue. Still on the bed, Denise clarified that if she hired a teacher who fixed Duplin's headache, earned Alenta's approval, and even dismissed Eileen, an even bigger problem existed. Bella smiled, then advised her to sleep. Denise, though, felt she had to listen. She said that if she failed to achieve anything, even with this teacher, it would make her seem incompetent. She wondered if she couldn't just fire him using her own power. Then she rolled under the blanket, saying she only wanted to live by lying down and reading novels. Bella reminded her that if she fired Derek, her allowance for those novels might be cut off. Denise went completely silent. Bella said she would take her leave. Left alone, Denise struggled under the blanket and screamed in frustration. After writhing for a bit, she peeked out from beneath the sheets with a blank, exhausted stare, muttering that this was seriously ridiculous.